Welcome to the Bakersfield City Council meeting. This television broadcast is brought to you by your local cable companies, the County of Kern, and the City of Bakersfield. You can watch the rebroadcast of this meeting Saturday at 7 p.m., Sunday at 10 a.m., and the following Wednesday at 7 p.m. You can download the agenda for this meeting at www.bakersfieldcity.us. Presiding over this evening's meeting, the Honorable Mayor Harvey L. Hall.
Good evening and welcome, everyone. It's my pleasure to call to order the City Council meeting of June the 8th, 2016, and ask the City Clerk to please call the roll.
Mayor Hall.
Here.
Vice Mayor Hanson.
Here.
Councilmember Rivera. Councilmember Maxwell.
Here.
Councilmember Weir.
Here.
Councilmember Smith.
I'm here.
Councilmember Sullivan. Councilmember Parlier.
Here.
At this time, I would like us all to stand for the invocation to be presented by Angelo Frazier from the River Lakes Community Church. And please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance by Selena Najarro, 7th grade student at Sierra Middle School.
Thank you for this esteemed opportunity to stand before you today. Honorable Mayor Harvey Hall, distinguished council members, Jackie Sullivan, the longest serving, and the local citizens of this great city of Bakersfield. Let's pray. Whether travail or triumph, the Lord, you are God. Through famine or prosperity, the Lord, you are King. And from this first council meeting to the last, you reign supreme. Lord, that your hand and favor would be on these leaders to strengthen them, to guide them, to encourage them, to heal them, to give them wisdom and discernment, to protect them, and to remind them of the amazing call and opportunity to continually cultivate the public trust, and to lead this great city into the future that awaits her with boldness and integrity in decision-making to civil actions, and patience and joy through the challenges and wins, and an increased desire to pray. For when a city prays, her gates open wide. We're making a living and for prosperity to thrive. When a city prays, true hope conquers fears, ingenuity abounds, and victories are cheered. When a city prays, there is no problem too big, no effort too small, no system too rigged. When a city prays, for his light to shine, from back alleys to boardrooms, law and order you will find. When the city prays, her leaders lead not in fear. Public trust and integrity are valued high and held dear. When the city prays, whether finances to faith will find their purpose in their proper place. When the city prays, her safety and growth will keep an eye on each other for security's highest oath. And when the city prays, her future she'll see a constitutional republic, life as it should be. We ask these things in your name, and everyone said, amen.
Salute. Pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we proceed, I request that all cellular telephones and communication devices be silenced. Pursuant to City Council policy, council members are prohibited from sending or receiving electronic communications during the meeting, and we request the same from our audience. For safety reasons and as a courtesy to others, no signs are allowed in the council chambers. Also, please be courteous in the use of any still cameras and video equipment. Audience applause is allowed during the presentation portion of the meeting, but is not permissible at any other time during the meeting. Thank you for your cooperation. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Under presentations, a presentation of a proclamation to Cody Naylor, California Public Utilities Commission declaring June 2016 National Safety Month.
Here at the City of Bakersfield, each day, we manage and operate under admirable safety working conditions. And through the risk department and the HR department, and through with the assistance of the various department heads, we practice safety on the job every day. And we do so that we can have preventable injuries on the job every day. In recognition of National Safety Month, I'd like to offer the following proclamation. Whereas millions of Americans annually suffer disabling injuries or death by accidental means, whereas National Safety Month is dedicated to raising public awareness regarding preventable injuries through education and training, and whereas the observance of National Safety Month supports employers and employees in working together in the prevention of accidental injuries and deaths. Whereas the City of Bakersfield encourages safety practices and employs proactive programs in an ongoing effort to assure the safety of the employees as well as citizens. And whereas the beginning of summer traditionally marks a time of increased accidental injuries and fatalities, it is the appropriate time to focus attention on preventing accidents. Therefore, I, Harvey L. Hall, Mayor of the City of Bakersfield, do hereby proclaim June 2016 as National Safety Month in our city and urge all citizens to establish and maintain safe practices in their homes, workplaces, and communities. Dated at Bakersfield, California, this 8th day of June 2016, and signed Harvey L. Hall, Mayor, City of Bakersfield. And Cody, please come forward. Let's get a picture here real quick.
Thank you, Mayor Hall, distinguished council members, staff, and members of the public. My name is Cody Naylor. I'm with the California Public Utilities Commission, and I'm so grateful for the opportunity to speak about National Safety Month, because the California Public Utilities Commission's most important role as a regulatory agency is to ensure safety for all Californians and ensure that the entities that we regulate are operating as safely as we can ensure that they can. By way of background, the California Public Utilities Commission regulates the operations, ensures the safe operations of all investor-owned gas and electric utilities, including Pacific Gas and Electric Company, Southern California Edison, and Southern California Gas Company. We ensure universal access to emergency services through our regulation of the private telecommunications companies like AT&T. We also regulate the safety of private transportation providers such as limousines, tour buses, and companies like Lyft and Uber that provide new transportation services. We regulate the railroads, including rail crossings, and as well as the infrastructure of investor-owned water utilities such as California Water Service Company. Safety is the Commission's top priority. We have devoted more resources to in our role as a safety regulator than any other part of the Commission's work. And my particular role in this effort is to make sure that if there are any concerns about the safe operations of any entity that we regulate, it is my job to make sure that we have an open line of communication between the folks leading and living in the city of Bakersfield to the state regulator. There's nothing more important to us than ensuring that we, as regulate over critical industries, are doing the best job that we can. And the most important thing that I can do is be an advocate for the city of Bakersfield to ensure that everything and anything that we can do to keep people in Bakersfield safer is what my role at the Commission is. I'm so grateful again for this opportunity to speak to you and to receive this proclamation. And I look forward to coming back here next month on June 11th here in the Bakersfield City Council chambers for our hearing on Pacific Gas and Electric's proposed changes to their electric rates for the next 3 years. That'll be on June 11th at 1 and 6 p.m. here at Bakersfield City Hall. Thank you again for this opportunity to speak with you today, and I look forward to seeing you again next month.
Mayor, the next presentation is a plaque to Mr. Brian Ginneling of Cruise Through Car Wash, honoring the company's beautification efforts at the 1101 Callaway Drive location.
Over here. One of you over here. Well, once again, here we are recognizing a local business for outstanding appearance of their business location. This is a program that continues to be provided through the Keep Bakersfield Beautiful Committee. And John Enriquez and Susan Stissy go out constantly taking pictures of outstanding appearing businesses in our community. And then they bring me all their photographs, and I make the choice as to which business will get the recognition for outstanding beautification. And tonight I'm here to recognize the Cruise Through Auto Wash operation at 1101 Callaway Drive. And I think that as they have multiple locations in Bakersfield, that in my opinion, by far, this location on Callaway Drive is the best one as far as appearance, with flowers and with shrubs. And it's just an overall, you would not think that it was a drive-through, cruise-through auto wash if you didn't know it was there. So these folks have done marvelous, marvelous work. And here tonight I have Brian and two of his associates that have come tonight. And so Brian, let me present you with this plaque of recognition for your business location. And thank you very much for all the work that you do. Come over this way so we can take a picture real quick. Lady, you can come with.
On behalf of Cruise Through, myself, Chelsea, and Shelby here, we want to thank you, Mayor Hall, and the City Council, as well as our partners over at Keep Bakersfield Beautiful, for this honor. It has been our goal at Cruise Through over the last 14 years to create a business that people enjoy visiting time and time again. And while our primary business is to clean your car and make it sparkle, we feel that because of our dedication to providing friendly customer service and clean, safe, beautiful car wash facilities, that we've been able to achieve that goal. So although they couldn't be here this evening, I want to acknowledge the team over at our Callaway location, Juan, Maria, and Luis, who are our managers over there, and the rest of the crew for the hard work that they do in keeping their facility looking beautiful. It is a privilege to continue to grow with and serve the Bakersfield community. Thank you.
Madam Clerk, please call the next item.
Public statements.
At this time, we will receive public statements. All statements are given a 3-minute time limit, 15 minutes per subject. If you have written comments that are longer than your verbal statement, provide it to the city clerk, who would then provide the copies to the city council. If you are here to speak on consent calendar hearing items 10A, B, C, D, E, and F, or hearing items 11A or 11B, this is not the time for you to speak. Members of the audience are asked to avoid engaging in any behavior that disrupts the orderly conduct of the meeting. Please do not criticize or impugn the mayor, the city council, or any member of the staff or the audience. The city council is very interested and concerned with your issues. Due to the public notice requirements of the Brown Act, the City Council cannot take action when an item is not on the agenda. The City Council can, however, refer your matter to committee or request that staff contact you. Madam Clerk, please call the first public speaker.
Mayor, we have 21 speakers this evening. The first is Camilo Javier Sosa regarding 319 Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard property.
Good evening. Please identify yourself and proceed.
Good evening. My name is Camilo Javier Sosa, and I own 2 properties in Bakersfield. And I wish to give you I am glad that the mayor is giving me this opportunity to speak to the group of the council to express the problems that we got in the community in Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard. And the problem is that from Brown Street to Virginia is completely dirty. And the reason of that is because my neighbors is 6 buildings in the end that is Virginia Boulevard, and the way it is Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard, but the problem is in the alley, in the other side of the alley. And we got over there about 4 or 5 cans of garbage, and those cans of garbage all the time is full, and it's over the floor. And that covers from Virginia to Brown Boulevard, Brown Street. And I have more than 15 years owning this property, and never helping us in the government, you know. So I think that it's a hell in that area, and we have to do something in order to save the community for heaven. So I am glad too that the way you administrate your prayers and the love that you got for the city and the gratitude to the right side. So we know that with the right side we are working in heaven, and that's the world that we have to take care. And that's the reason that I came to talk to all of us here to see if we can do something. And if you can apologize the good intentions that I have to have clean the community. I will appreciate it if you can do something. And that's all I can say. Thank you very much.
Councilmember Parlier.
Thank you, Mayor. In the absence of Councilman Rivera, I'm going to ask that Solid Waste reach out to this gentleman and see if we can mitigate some of his concerns. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Madam Clerk, please call the next public speaker.
Next speaker is Dennis Fox regarding HCP opportunity.
Good evening. Please identify yourself and proceed.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I am Dennis Fox. And in 2 weeks, the state of California Fish and Game Commission will be in town for a 3-day meeting. First time in several years, and rather than have a wine-a-thon and run them off for another 30 years, this is probably an opportunity that we could blow the horn for Bakersfield and maybe access some funding for the HCP, the Habitat Plan. Let them know what we're doing and what we'd like to have, and also bring it to, hopefully it comes to people's attention that habitat plans have to do with critters and not with parks. Thank you.
Madam Clerk, please call the next public speaker.
Barbara Hardin regarding Bakersfield City Shelter.
evening.
Good evening. Please identify yourself and proceed.
Yes, sir. I am here just speaking on behalf of all shelter workers and would just like to commend all the shelter workers in the Bakersfield City shelters, the animal shelters, and thank them for doing such a hard, unthankful job. There are a lot of controversies right now regarding them, but I've been there and I know that they're trying their hardest. We do need some new oversight, but I will defer to Sue Madigan and her plans. Thank you.
Madam Clerk, please call the next public speaker.
Louis Gill regarding Alliance Against Family Violence and Sexual Assault in Bakersfield Homeless Center.
Good evening. Please identify yourself and proceed.
Good evening. My name is Louis Gill. I'm the CEO of the Alliance Against Family Violence and Sexual Assault and the Bakersfield Homeless Center. And I just wanted to take the opportunity to remind you of the good work that you guys are involved in with our organizations. I don't often get in front of you to talk about what we're able to accomplish together, so I thought that an update was appropriate. On the Alliance side and the Homeless Center, just as a reminder, what we do, we serve families in crisis. Something awful is occurring in their lives in order for them to need our services. You've invested for years through ESG funds in both organizations to make sure that we can do our work. Last month alone, 92 people walked through the doors of the Alliance asking for help with violence in a relationship. Somebody that said they loved them and harmed them. We had to respond to the hospital once because somebody was hurt so bad. It's not typical, but we do get called sometimes. What is unfortunately all too typical, last month we went to the hospital for 19 victims of sexual assault. The oldest victim was 56 years of age. The youngest was 3 years old. I wish I could tell you that that was an unusual month. Our emergency shelter is always full. Right now there are 17 little people running around there, but they're safe. I also would like to report that because of our relationship with our university, we've been able to reach out to that student population, and 4 individuals last month came in for both of our services. On the homeless center side, 400 to 500 meals a day for some people that don't have another option. Our 174 beds are almost constantly full. Again, you've used emergency solution grants to invest in our facility. We have the large family shelter, and we also have a tool that's called rapid rehousing. I'm not sure if you're aware of it, but what it is it's a way to invest in people so that they're able to get a deposit, they're able to pay back PG&E, we can get them out of the safety net and back into a permanent home. Because of that, because directly of investment from the city, 127 households have permanent homes. That's a real number. I want to thank Mayor Hall because years ago he came to me with somebody from the city and said, you guys need to think about this job development program. You need to think about working at Green Waste because they had this idea. So we took a kind of a risk and said, all right, we've never been an employer before in that way, let's try. It's been an amazing success. People are moving out on their own and getting homes. Mayor Hall came and spoke with our crews, and they're still talking about it. Because of it, we've been able to help at the Green Waste facility. We're at the Animal Care Center every day. Got 3 crews out on the freeways. And now, privately funded, we have a crew cleaning up downtown. 2 guys that are running around picking things up. I'll tell you that the crews on the freeway, each crew is averaging around 590 bags of trash a month. Now, the West Side Parkway is still cleaner, so it's only about 279 per crew. What I want to tell you is that our relationship with KBB has been great. And what they've been most impressed with, the pride these gentlemen are taking in their jobs. They just want to keep downtown clean. And the best thing I can report to you today, some of the folks that are living downtown, that are camping outside, are starting to approach them and say, how do you get help? So I just want to say thank you. You guys are doing a good job.
Madam Clerk, please call the next public speaker.
Harry Halterman regarding concern over Ward 2 rising crime rate.
Good evening. Please identify yourself and proceed.
My name is Harry Halterman, and my wife, Linda, and I own a piece of property that's located in the 2nd Ward, specifically 30th Street and Panama Street. We've owned the property for about 3 years, and in the past, we have not had any problems that I'm aware of in regards to crime in the neighborhood. However, in the course of the last 2 weeks, there's been 3 what I consider major incidences that I would like to address, and just my intent is not to condone or condemn anyone, but I have a philosophy that if people don't know that something's broke, they can't fix it. On 525, one of my tenants, who was a single mom with 4 kids under the age of 6th grade level, which I think is 12, somewhere around there, she called PD at 3 in the afternoon to report a man across the street out in public masturbating. Her kids were expected to be home very soon from the school on the bus that drops off in front of the house because she has a special needs child. She never got an officer to respond to the call. She called back an hour later. The officer on the phone told her that a detective would be assigned to the case. When that detective contacted her about 4 days later, she was told that it was a misdemeanor without enough evidence to support anything, and the case was being closed. On Sunday, this last week, one of my other tenants, who also is it's a married couple with 4 kids from 8th grade and under, had their car stolen from in front of their front yard. Now, this is a 4-plex unit, so it's 2 duplexes side by side. And they all face Panama Street. She called me to tell me about it, and I was just kind of shocked that so much had been going on in such a short time period after 3 years of virtually nothing as far as calls regarding crime. This, however, kind of had a good turnout. The next day, the police recovered her car in the Delano or Wasco area, and apparently they had stolen her car to get up there and dumped it and stole another car. And then on Tuesday of this week, I believe it was, I got a phone call from one of my other tenants who had just moved in on the 2nd of this month to let me know that there had been a foot pursuit with PD chasing a suspect. The suspect cut through the yard and dumped a gun in the bushes. Now, keep in mind, having a gun dumped in your yard is one thing, but there are 8 children under the age of 8th grade that live in those apartments. And I just wanted to come before the council to let them know of the rising situation, because I'm concerned that with the level of violent crimes that have taken place in the last 6 months in the city, that some of the lesser crimes might be being overlooked in an effort to focus their attentions on the violent crimes. Because the PD basically told my tenant with the guy out in the front yard that, you know, it being a misdemeanor didn't take a lot, it wasn't a high priority on their, you know, prioritization of their calls. So again, I'm just here to say, you know, if you don't know what's broke, you can't fix it. For my responsibility, I've been in touch with crime prevention, asked them to come out and do a property survey of my property to give me advice on what steps I can take in making it a safer area. And we're also investigating the possibility of starting a neighborhood watch. So I feel I'm doing my part as a property owner, and if there's anything that City Council can do, I would hope that they would be able to step in and do their part as well. Thank you very much.
Councilmember Maxwell.
Thank you very much. You know, I would like police to reach out to you, and I know that we can do the neighborhood watch. We can assist with that. There are some great programs. We have some availability of things. So I would like for us to get your information. I know that we have crime problems in the city. It's in the Ward 2 area. I'm aware of it in the Westchester area, in the Oleander area, and I know in your area it does have a bit of a crime problem. And I appreciate you coming and taking the time and letting all of us know that. It always helps because your voice, statistics show when somebody comes and mentions that to us, you represent 1,000 people. So thank you very much.
Councilmember Sullivan.
Thank you, Mayor. Sir, did you open your comments with saying Ward 2? Yes, I did. Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you.
Madam Clerk, please call the next public speaker.
Mayor, we have 5 speakers regarding 24th Street. The first is Judith Harneman.
Good evening. Please identify yourself and proceed.
Good evening. Judith Harneman, Mayor, Honourable Council members. This has been a long road, and actually no pun intended. It's taken a lot of research on my part to delve down into the details. And specifically what I find challenging with the FEIR is that you go on this wild goose chase of trying to find the documents of some of the statements that are being made in there. See footnote 26. Where is this document available? The response was, oh, you can get it from the city's office. There are statements about federal or state regulations, but what are they? How can I research this information unless I know where to go to look for it? Overall, I do recognize that staff put in a lot of hours and a lot of work, but I am still left with unanswered questions. So in conclusion, I just want you to know or think about the realities of the fact that the public isn't able to have access to the necessary documents that support some of the assumptions in the FEIR. Thank you.
Madam Clerk, please call the next public speaker.
Robert Braley.
Good evening. Please identify yourself and proceed.
My name is Robert Braley. On the May 18th council meeting, the city attorney stated that the legal expenses related to the 24th Street litigation were around $1.5 million. This statement was dreadfully misleading and left the impression that the city paid the petitioners somewhere around that amount of money. I feel it would be appropriate if the city attorney clarified that statement and made clear just how much of that money was paid to reimburse the petitioners, how much the city paid to their own attorneys, and how much has been paid in other expenses related to the litigation. In short, simply itemize what those expenses were. It should also be pointed out that the city's attorneys are also out-of-town lawyers. They are not local, and are charging the city approximately twice the hourly rate that the petitioner's attorneys are charging and were reimbursed for. And finally, the city would not have paid anything to the petitioners if the city had not lost in portions of the litigation. Thank you.
Madam Clerk, please call the next public speaker.
Vanessa Vangel.
Good evening. Please identify yourself and proceed.
Yes, good evening. Vanessa Vangel. Honorable Mayor, City Council members, staff, Tripp, and Parsons. Over the past 4 years, I have submitted and presented what I believe to be strong and compelling arguments opposing the 24th Street widening project. Apparently, according to Councilwoman Sullivan's comments on May 18th, my efforts to argue the merits of my opposition have been an exercise in futility. First of all, something I find troubling, insulting, and disrespectful is a statement in the city's administrative report dated 5/24/2016 in reference to our group, the Citizens Against the 24th Street Widening Project. The city states, "It seems," and I quote, It seems their goal is a perpetual study that will never be sufficient. Our group has been unfairly labeled as the villains. To be clear, it was not our group. It was the Superior Court of Kern County's rulings and findings that the FEIR was deficient, inadequate, and did not meet CEQA statute and requirements. Secondly, the purpose of our citizens group is to stand up for our rights under CEQA's statute and guidelines. Under legislative intent, number one, every citizen has a responsibility, and I would like to emphasize every citizen has a responsibility to contribute to the preservation and enhancement of the environment. Number two, ensure that the long-term protection of the environment, consistent with the provision of a decent home and suitable living environment for every Californian, shall be the guiding criterion in public decisions. Number three, require governmental agencies at all levels to develop standards and procedures necessary to protect environmental quality. Thirdly, from a taxpayer's point of view, the very idea of this council's approval of spending approximately $70 million on this unnecessary project is irresponsible. This project will destroy 23 homes in a historically significant neighborhood, remove 243 mature trees, lose 293 downtown parking spaces, merely to improve travel time on 1 mile of 24th Street by a measly 0.9 to 1.7 minutes. This is simply ludicrous. This point needs to be restated. Every citizen has a responsibility to contribute to the preservation and enhancement of the environment. Thank you.
Madam Clerk, please call the next public speaker.
Valerie Munoz.
Good evening. Please identify yourself and proceed.
Good evening. My name is Valerie Munoz, and I represent Frank Rose and Rod Munoz. Classic, historic, quiet, relaxed, welcoming, and beautiful trees. These are just a few of the ideals that represent what the Westchester neighborhood is all about. Those of us who live in Westchester live there because we are attracted to those values and quality of living. Anyone who stands before you today, whether for or against, stands on the shoulders of those who fought for those same ideals that have kept Westchester classic, with the historic trees, relaxed settings, quiet streets, and welcoming neighborhoods. There are really two issues here. It's the 24th Street widening into downtown, and then the cul-de-sacs or the curbings that represent the cul-de-sacs. So the first, 24th Street widening into downtown, will create more lanes of traffic, more noise, more pollution. And if you read the Thomas Roads Improvement Project, there are plans in place, as was mentioned, to remove 243 of our historic beautiful trees. Are these the ideals that exemplify the neighborhood of Westchester? Is this why our neighbors moved to Westchester? I was in Portland over the weekend. Downtown Portland has one-way streets. When I asked a local business person how they like the one-way streets, they said it has reduced the traffic jamming up, and it works. How about that? It works. Mr. Maxwell's progressive ideas and concepts of coordinated stoplights and one-way streets could be a viable solution for streaming downtown traffic from 24th Street. So we want to thank Mr. Maxwell for doing his homework. Now, the curbings and the cul-de-sacs. One of our 10-year-old neighbors on A Street was almost hit by a car that was racing down 22nd Street. Since the curbings have been put in, 22nd Street has become a raceway. If the curbings cul-de-sacs are really about allowing the kids to play safely, the city should provide stop signs on A and Myrtle Streets. Better yet, put speed bumps, if this is really about the kids playing safely. I believe in our political processes, and that means when I participate, for or against, my voice should be heard equitably and without bias. There is a reason why having to address this same 24th Street topic over the years has been a tired topic. I realize that whether or not I share my views, this is a done deal, this is set in stone. Well, just like the previous residents who have lived in Westchester way before me, we love the Westchester neighborhood. We don't want more lanes of traffic. We don't want more pollution. We want safer streets, and we want to keep our historic trees. Though I've never formally met Terry Maxwell, I appreciate his professional work ethic and efforts to research alternative approaches and find solutions that work for his constituents. He takes his job seriously, and we should all aspire to that standard of care and not be threatened by it. Thank you.
Madam Clerk, please call the next public speaker.
The last speaker regarding 24th Street is Charles Webb.
Good evening. Please identify yourself and proceed.
My name is Charles Webb, and good evening, Mayor, City Council, and City staff. I'm here tonight to voice my opposition to Segment 3 of the 24th Street Improvement Project. I'm opposing Segment 3 because it's not necessary. The reason it's not necessary is that the traffic volumes do not support it. Let me explain. The traffic volumes since early 2014 on the segment of road that we're talking about, which is between Olive Street and D Street, the two-lane segment there, have decreased in the mornings by about 6.5%, and in the afternoons by 14%. This is since 2014. Why have they decreased? Because people are taking Truxton and getting on the West Side Parkway. They're not taking 24th Street simply to go down Rosedale Highway, which is under construction. Now you might say, well, when Rosedale Highway is finished, they'll be back. But no, they won't be back, because Truxton Avenue is going to be widened. And that's still going to be the preferred way for people to go to the west side. They're not going to take 24th Street and get on Rosedale Highway just to be faced with, a whole row of stoplights out there. Furthermore, when the Hageman Flyover project is completed, the people that live in the northwest are not going to take 24th Street either. They're going to hop on 204, Golden State Highway, and they're going to take Hageman off to the northwest. So this is a permanent reduction in the number of people using 24th Street. So what was the project predicated on? The project was predicated on 5,000 cars. This was the forecast for 2015, which was last year. 5,000 cars, vehicles per hour in the morning, 5,000 vehicles per hour in the evening. Well, guess what it actually was last year? 3,000 cars in the morning, 3,500 cars in the afternoon. The forecast for 2015 was 50% too high. 50%. That was a year ago. They couldn't even get the forecast for a year ago right. Does that give you a warm, fuzzy feeling about 2035? At any rate, the city staff needs to go back and redo the FAR with the proper traffic numbers and to see if this project is warranted. I don't think it's going to be. Thank you.
Madam Clerk, please call the next public speaker.
Mayor, we have 11 speakers regarding Pumpkin and the City Animal Care Center. The first speaker is Jen White.
Before you begin your comments, I want to encourage all of you that have presented speaker cards on this item to please move down to the front so that we can try to expedite this 15-minute topic portion and allow you all to speak. I want to remind everybody it's 3 minutes per speaker, and we have 15 minutes. So I encourage you all that are going to speak, the 11 speakers, that you speak quickly. Do not repeat the previous comments from other speakers, and move on so that I can allow all of you to be able to speak on this item. Good evening. Please identify yourself and proceed.
Good evening. I'm Jen White, and thank you for giving us the opportunity to come and share.
Pull the microphone down to you, please.
Is this better? Yes? Okay. I'm Jen White. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to come and speak. I'd like to start by sharing my deepest sympathy and condolences for Pumpkin's owner and her loss. I would like to share my own personal experience with the city shelter and the staff. My daughter, Trinity, and I, she's 9, we have been volunteering there for about 1.5 years now, and we spend many, many hours there with the animals and the staff. And our experience with the staff in rescuing and saving and in our fostering is that they always go above and beyond in saving the animals that come into their shelter. I've fostered, countless numbers of animals whose health was questionable, who maybe wouldn't have done so well without the expert care and thought process that the staff at the shelter provides. Again, I'm sorry for the loss of Pumpkin. The staff, I know they go above and beyond, and I just wanted to share kind of some of my personal experience with the staff. That's all. Thank you.
Madam Clerk, please call the next public speaker.
Kenneth Gregg.
Good evening. Please identify yourself and proceed.
My name is Kenneth Gregg. I'm here to support my friend Manu Sayadan, whose dog we believe was wrongfully euthanized a few weeks ago at the Mount Vernon Animal Shelter. Manu's going to tell you her story of the dog in a few minutes, but first I'd like to review a short section of California code that refers to the handling of animals found in public places. This is from section 597F of the California Code. It says, "It shall be the duty of all officers of pounds or humane societies and animal regulation departments of public agencies to convey all injured cats and dogs found with their owners without their owners in a public place directly to a veterinarian for a determination of whether the animal shall be immediately and humanely destroyed or shall be hospitalized and given emergency treatment. If the owner does not redeem the animal within the locally prescribed waiting period, the veterinarian may personally perform euthanasia on the animal, or if the animal is treated and recovers from its injuries, the veterinarian may keep the animal for purposes of adoption, provided the responsible animal control agency has refused to take possession of the animal. An animal control agency which takes possession of an animal shall keep records of the whereabouts of the animal for a 72-hour period from the time of possession, and those records shall be available for inspection upon request." The problem we have was this dog was not examined by a vet. It was euthanized within a couple hours of being taken to the shelter, so there was no waiting period. The next morning when the shelter opened at 10 o'clock, we expected to find the dog there because neighbors took the dog there. So Manu went there at 10 o'clock and discovered that they had already destroyed the dog. So she's going to give you a more detailed account about what happened. I just wanted to read that code there and stress the section about no veterinarian and no waiting period. That's all I have. Thank you.
Madam Clerk, please call the next public speaker.
Manu Sayadan.
Good evening. Please identify yourself and proceed.
My name is Minu Saidan. I'm here on behalf of my dog, Pumpkin, and to denounce the actions of the director of the Mount Vernon Animal Shelter on May 12, 2016. I respectfully request that members of the City Council do a thorough investigation into Pumpkin's death and ensure the laws are enforced as written. I also request that the committee responsible for the next animal services contract add a clause that Penal Code 597F must be followed as written, and that only a qualified veterinarian be able to make life and death decisions concerning animals surrendered by anyone other than their owners. On May 12th, at 11 o'clock, my dog was a healthy, bouncy dog. He greeted me at the door like he has done for the 15 years prior to that awful day. He followed me up and down the stairs. He ate his food. He was going to attack the other dog to grab his food. I left the house before 12. I came back at 5:30. He wasn't there to greet me. I looked everywhere. I asked my friend to come, and we went and looked for him in the neighborhood, left phone numbers. Finally, we found out that he was taken to Mount Vernon Animal Shelter. First thing in the morning, I went there. The lady at the desk said she hasn't seen my dog. I showed the picture. Even though we left a message the night before, described the dog, they knew I'm coming. They just said they haven't seen it. I have to check with other shelters. I refused. I said, I know my dog is here. Finally, they said, go and check in the kennels. I checked. My dog wasn't there. I returned. There were like 10 or 12 employees standing there whispering among themselves. Finally, a young lady said, but she told me do it. She told me to. I said, what did you do? She said, the director told me to put him down as soon as he came in. At that time, I lost it. I went to my car sobbing. One of the employees came and gave me the name of the director. I contacted the director that night, left a couple of messages for her. She called me back on Monday. She started by apologizing, saying she was in a lot of pain. She was gasping for air. I personally examined her. It was the humane thing to do. I said, Miss Johnson, you examined my dog. He was a little boy. You call her a girl? You call him a girl? That's how you examine my dog? She started backtracking and changing her words. And I said, Miss Johnson, if my dog was panting hard, it was hot, and he was scared. He was blind, he was deaf, and he was in unfamiliar place. But she refused to accept that, and I knew at that time that there is nothing I can say to her that would make any changes. So that's why I'm here. The laws were not followed. I asked her, are you a vet? She said no. I said, did you call a vet? She said no. I said, did you at least take him to a room, give him some water? She said no, it seemed unnecessary. Unnecessary? That dog, there was absolutely at 11 o'clock, nothing wrong with him. If there was an inclination that there is something wrong with him, I would have dropped everything, had taken him to the vet. It is absolutely impossible for that dog that within 2 hours get to the point that he needed to be put down. Ms. Johnson suggested that maybe the dog was hit by a car. A 15-pound Yorkie was hit by a car without a scratch on him. I was taken to one room over there to examine the body of Pumpkin. There was a field officer, animal control field officer, who also examined Pumpkin's body. She was at awe. She said, this makes no sense. There was not a scratch on Pumpkin's body. Pumpkin was old, but he was indispensable. Pumpkin was a loyal dog who stood by me for 15 years through ups and downs of my life. When it was my turn to stand by him, that was taken away from me. When it was time for him to go, he was going to be held by me and told that he was a good boy and everything was going to be okay. It wasn't up to Ms. Johnson to make that decision without consulting with a vet. I'm here to ask that the laws be enforced. I'm here to find out why she didn't follow the laws. We have over 15,000 petitions signed and many of comments, and I can provide you with those comments, are related with the treatment of the animals in the same animal shelter. The time is here and the time is now. We have to do something about the welfare of our animals in the shelter. I beg you to look into this, and I thank you for your time.
Councilmember Parlier.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, this is obviously a very emotional issue. So I'd like to refer, I mean, we're not going to figure it out tonight, so I'd like to refer this to Community Services Committee and maybe get everybody in the same room, staff and participants here tonight, and maybe be able to figure this one out. Thank you.
Vice Mayor Hanson.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, there's no question this is a very emotional issue, but I can tell you that Mr. Talia, city staff, has been in contact with Julie Johnson and the people at SPCA, and we've talked a couple times on the telephone. And I was under the impression, and I know, I mean, I got two animals, they're so dear to me, and I lost an animal 2 years ago, and it darn near killed me. So I know it just rips your heart out, but I got to tell you that the SPCA has done a pretty good job out there, and you know, I go out there from time to time just kind of wander around, because we had a situation with the county several years ago that you know, that there was not as good a care as we thought there should have been as far as the city was concerned, and we were able to work with the SPCA, and Mr. Talia has been very involved in that. I think the referral by Councilmember Parlier is a great referral, but you know, you know, it happened. Ms. John, and you have a right to your opinion, and Mrs. Johnson, you know, in her opinion, was that the dog was in great distress, and I don't know what to tell you on that one, except it just happened.
Mr. Hanson, I would like to say that if for 1 second I believed that my dog needed to be put down, I would have shaken Ms. Johnson's hand and thanked her for that. I love that animal. There was absolutely no way I would have let him suffer. It is impossible.
Ma'am, excuse me, if you're going to continue the dialogue, please move over to the microphone.
Yeah, but don't.
If the reason I brought up when I saw the dog is only to specify how soon this happened. It is impossible that that dog within a span of 2 hours have gone from jumping up and down and greeting me at the door to gasping for air, so he had to be put down. I believe this was an error in judgment. However, Ms. Johnson has a power to make a decision over the life and the death of animal. I believe in that instant, her judgment was wrong. The law should not allow bad judgment to take effect.
Okay, and I'm not disagreeing with you, except I'm just saying that, you know, we're doing our best to make sure that operation runs properly, but the SPCA is a separate organization. It is not part of the city of Bakersfield, but we do have some control over that situation, and we will follow up. And I think you were pretty satisfied last time you and I conversed. I think it was a week ago. When I say satisfied, not that you lost your dog, but with your dealings with Mr. Talia and the people of the city.
Yeah,
You know,
this is no
we
longer-
could beat this thing to death all night, but, you know, we got the message. We're going to do what we need to do, and hopefully, you know, this situation doesn't happen in the future.
And that's the only reason I'm here. No amount of crying will bring my dog back, but I want to make sure no other dog will be treated the way my Pumpkin was treated. That's the only reason we are here, to make sure the laws are
Yeah,
enforced.
and you've been very eloquent, and perhaps that the balance of the speakers, I mean, if they're going to talk about the same subject, then, you know, the story's been told. Thank you very much.
Madam Clerk, please call the next public speaker.
Mo Mansour.
She already spoken what I was going to say, so I'll pass my time.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Sorry, Mayor. Nancy Clover.
I'll pass my time.
Terry Kahn.
Oh, I'll take my time.
Good evening. Please identify yourself and proceed.
Terry Kahn, Bakersfield City Council, through the mayor. You have a major liability on your hands, and her name is Julie Johnson. I'm not an attorney. I'm a California high school teacher, teach science, and I can do research. Laws I have found that were broken by Ms. Johnson include California Penal Code 597.1, C as in Charlie, saying that any peace officer, humane society officer, animal control officer, etc., finding an injured dog or cat without their owner in a public space, as this dog was found, must be taken directly to a veterinarian who ordinarily treats dogs and cats, so the veterinarian will determine whether the dog needs to be humanely destroyed or can be given emergency treatment. California Penal Code 597, F as in Frank, was already read to you. California Penal Code 599, D as in Delta, Section B as in boy. It is the policy of the state that no treatable animal shall be euthanized. Remember, Ms. Johnson does not have a medical degree. California Food and Agricultural Code 31107, impounded dog notice to owner before disposal. No dog which is impounded pursuant to this division shall be killed or otherwise disposed of without notice to the owner. She never even tried to find the owner. California Food and Agricultural Code 31108, holding period for impounded dogs. The required holding period for a stray dog, which this dog was, shall be 6 business days, not including the day of impoundment, except as follows, and they go on with several things. This dog was given less than an hour. Codes that I've read are part of the codes that will be included in the complaint to the California State Attorney General's office. Again, you have a major liability on your hands. Her name is Julie Johnson. Thank you for your time.
Madam Clerk, please call the next public speaker.
Christy Nolan.
I'm happy to agree with the previous speakers.
Brian Lai.
No further comment.
Susan Madigan.
Good evening. Please identify yourself and proceed.
Good evening. My name is Susan Madigan. In the spirit of Elizabeth Keogh, I'm a proud resident of Ward 2 in the city of Bakersfield. I'm also, thank you, everybody. I'm also an appointed member of the Kern County Animal Control Commission, but I'm not formally representing them. However, Mino told her story to the commission and the attendees at the last meeting, and I would be positive to say that every member of the commission would agree that this was a very tragic and poor judgment situation. The decision that Julie Johnson made, none of us were there. I fully believe that Penal Code 597 was violated, but I wasn't there. But I believe that this was a violation of the law. That being said, there, as it has been mentioned, there's a longstanding concern about management in city animal control. one person has a great deal of power, and that person is not even a veterinary technician, let alone a vet. And that's been an issue for quite some time. My concern is that the city does not have any kind of outstanding body as the county does. I propose that at your next agenda item at the next meeting, you consider creating a body of interested citizens to provide oversight and recommendation to animal control, as does the County Animal Control Commission. Let me see if I have it in the notes here. That's about all I have. I just would really like to see that. The creation of the commission over the years has been very advantageous to animals, to animal services, to the community. It's brought everyone together, and it's provided appropriate oversight and recommendation for the Board of Supervisors up and for the Animal Control Services down. So thank you very much.
The first 15-minute segment is about to expire. Let me see a show of hands of those individuals that filed speaker cards that have not spoken as yet who wish to speak. Please come forward and identify yourself.
Stacy Enns. I'm here to support Minu and what happened. It's a concern, and also I just wanted to make sure that there was going to be an investigation. Mr. Hansen said there was already one done, but just so that we know and are clear that, you know, what happened was warranted. I am not here to say anything bad about any shelter workers, because I know they have their work cut out for them in this city. This city has a problem with a lot of stray dogs, overpopulation of animals, etc. So anyway, also, I don't know why there's not a veterinarian at the city shelter, but there's not. Also, what Ms. Madigan said about maybe possibly getting an animal control commission for the city, that would be wonderful. We could get public members and some commission members together where we can hash out things and try to make things better for the animal care center. And so if I understand what you said, that it would be sent to a committee and we would be notified?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Are there additional persons present who wish to speak on this item? Please come forward. Please identify yourself and proceed.
My name is Susan Bennett. I came specifically to support Manu, but I would also like to move to the side because our support is obvious, and I think your interest is obvious as well. Kern Humane Society is my spot, and just a quick thank you to all of you, Mr. Tandy, Mr. Taglia, Mr. Parlare, and those people who have so strongly supported your spay-neuter voucher program. We had our first of the year, because we have a financial year that starts on the 1st of June, voucher giveaway day on Saturday. I gave away 250 vouchers. Half of those were people who were heading down to animal control to pick up another voucher. Thank you.
Are there additional persons present who wish to speak on this item? Madam Clerk, please call the next public speaker.
Mayor, there are no further public statements.
Next item, please.
7A appointments, one appointment of an alternate member to the Keep Bakersfield Beautiful Committee representing Ward 7 due to the resignation of Mark Tarango, whose term expires November 2018. One application has been received from Grant Obenshane.
Councilmember Parlier, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I move the nomination of Grant Obenshane.
You have a motion. Please cast your votes.
The motion is approved with Councilmember Rivera absent.
Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Consent calendar items 8A through 8AK for approval.
I will ask the council if there's anyone that would like to recuse himself for any item. Mr. Smith?
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Councilmember Bob Smith will abstain from item 8C on the consent calendar agenda. My vote to approve the consent calendar will apply only to those items for which I have not abstained. I am abstaining from the consent calendar agenda item because it affects my business entity, a client. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Any council member wish to remove an item for separate consideration? Mr. Weir?
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Item 8P is in Paul, please.
Thank you. And I understand that the mayor would like to comment on item W. And also, I would like to remove item 8AJ for separate consideration. With saying that, I will make a motion to approve consent calendar items 8A through 8AK, Catherine, with the exceptions of item P, Paul, W, and AJ.
You have a motion. Please cast your votes.
The motion is approved with Councilmember Rivera absent.
Councilmember Weir on item 8, P as in Paul, please.
Thank you, Mayor. You know, I've been on the council now for some time, and I have to say that during almost 10 years, I've had some, let's say, reservations about Mr. Avery's firm. Mr. Tandy, is there any urgency to this contract being approved tonight?
Councilmember Weir, Mr. Avery's been with us so long that I'm sure there isn't. If council needs more time, that can happen.
Okay, thank you. For quite some time, and especially the last few years, I have the feeling, or at least get the perception, that a number of times Mr. Avery and his firm have not really adequately represented the council's position on various items and has not pursued that position successfully. And when it comes down to it, if the council really has a labor issue and the council really wants that issue resolved, it is city staff that walks in and solves that issue. It's not Mr. Avery's firm. So I thought about just voting no on this item, but I'm actually going to make a motion that the contract be extended through the end of the year. Actually, I want the contract to come back at the next council meeting. Contract possibly being extended to the end of the year with very specific goals and expectations regarding objectives with our labor group and related matters. And after that 6 months, we would have a chance to evaluate that contract and see how the performance has been. And that motion is certainly open to friendly amendments if a council member has one. That's my motion. Thank you.
Vice Mayor Hanson.
Thank you, Mayor. In deference to Mr. Weir's request or motion, that I will agree with him.
You have a motion. Please cast your votes.
The motion is approved with Councilmember Rivera absent.
Vice Mayor Hanson, I'd like for you to take up your item of AJ now.
I'll be pleased to do so, Mayor. And this is not a big financial item, except that we've been going through the budget presentations. We are strained to the limit with the public. Oh, sorry. We are strained to the limit. Excuse me. I don't mean to get emotional over this thing. We're staying to the limit as far as public safety is concerned. We've not given as much attention as we'd like to as far as parks and recreation. And every department in the city is under great stress to control costs as much as possible. And we have an item on the agenda tonight to increase the spending, potential spending of council members to attend the League of Cities meetings. Some of these meetings are in Sacramento, some are in Long Beach, Monterey, etc. Now, for reference purposes, we have a representation on the League of Cities, which happens to be the vice mayor, me. I'm on the board, so we do have representation. I cannot see, and I'm going to make a motion on this thing, why we would want to have open the door for 1, 2, 3, or 4 members of the city council to attend some of these meetings, for potentially to be in a caucus. And I can tell you right now, some of these caucuses up there are very partisan, and we're not supposed to be a partisan committee. I mean, we got the various ethnic groups that have their reasons to caucus. We have, well, I'm not going to say anything else because I'm going to get in trouble if I do. But just say that, and I think everybody up here knows what I'm talking about. So I'm going to make a motion that we not approve this item. I'm going to go. There's three requests here. There's one for the all league board committee and caucus meetings. I'm going to make a motion that we not do that. The second item is the formal state legislative testimony, excuse me, go up there and talk to anyone making opportunities to the legislation. I'm sorry. Basically, what we have here is if someone's interested in going up, someone in the legislature is going to be up doing testimony, and we would go up there and, I don't even say participate, but we would be listening and maybe influencing something. Again, we can check on the internet. Any of that information is available. So that would be an additional cost. So that should be out. The third item, I'm not sure what this is, but the Kern County Development Corporation Economic Summit, and I don't know what that is, but that's something that I can live with because it's in Kern County. It obviously has an impact upon the city. So my motion would be to approve the Kern Economic Development Corporation, Kern County Economic Summit meeting or dinner, whatever that it would be, and to exclude the items with the League of Cities in California.
Councilmember Weir, please.
Thank you, Mayor. It's not exactly the motion that I thought we were going to hear, but we currently are asking everybody to cut back their spending, to do more with less. I've been to a number of these things. If I want to go to the Economic Summit, I go. It's not an issue. And when I was involved, when I was vice mayor, and I was involved with the League of Cities, reimbursement policy was more than adequate. So I don't see that there needs to be any change to that. But I'm not going to be able to support. I'm just going to make a motion that we just reject item AJ And maybe if budget turns around a little bit or something in the future, we could have another discussion about this. But the items that are on there, just, I don't think they're at a great expense for any council member to participate in. And at this time, it's just the wrong time for it. We're asking everybody else to cut back, and we're going to get reimbursed for more expenses. Just doesn't sound right to me. So that's my motion.
Councilmember Parlier, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, as long as we're doing motions here. This was brought up, at least the first two, by Councilman Rivera. And since he's absent tonight, I would just make a motion that we delay it to the next council meeting so at least he can put his best arguments forward. On the Kern Economic Development Corporation, actually this one's mine, and the only reason I submitted it is because just like any committee or assignment, and Vice Mayor, that was one of the assignments you gave me when I was first elected, was to represent the city on KEDC. And this is one thing that is their annual representation that all cities, and I checked with KEDC on this, and I think we're one of the few cities that don't have or reimburse their members for going to this specific summit. And the only reason I brought it up is because it was a council assignment. But if you don't want it, then I guess I'll give up my $100 a month council pay to pay for it.
Well, Mr. Weir has made a motion to, well, I guess to...
Well, let me ask my colleague, Mr. Weir, if he would...
My motion was to approve that part of it.
Well, let me ask my colleague if he would possibly amend that.
Okay. I have to disagree with your idea, respectfully, with Mr. Rivera, because I really believe that, you know, we start getting up in Sacramento with all these guys up there, we're getting into political deals, and it's getting Republican, it's getting Democrat, it's getting radicals. I mean, some of these caucuses, I'm going to tell you folks, Ken knows this because he was on the board, I'm on the League of Cities. Some of these caucuses are radical, and I'm not suggesting that Mr. Rivera is radical, but if we say it's okay now, who knows what's going to happen next year? Somebody else may be sitting here and with different ideas. So,
well, that's fine, Harold. I think I still got it. But anyway, out of respect to my colleague Denner Diaz, that's my motion. I don't necessarily disagree with you on this, just out of respect, since the council member isn't here on their item. But on the third item, which is separate and apart from what he entered, I would request that, but if not, like I said, I'd give up my council pay for the month to attend your assignment. Thank you.
Councilmember Parlier, I'm really confused by your statement.
Well,
you started out by making a motion. Is that still active?
Yes.
What is that motion?
It will be two parts. The first part would be to delay it until next month. The second part would be to ask my colleague, Mr. Weir, if he'd reconsider the third item.
Okay, we're going to act on...
Well, it wouldn't necessarily be a motion. It just asks for a reconsideration.
I'm going to handle it as a motion because I want to move this along. Okay, I'm going to act on the first motion by, the latest motion by Councilmember Parlier. Please cast your votes.
The motion is approved with Council members, Vice Mayor Hansen and Councilmember Smith voting no.
Okay, now I'm going to call for...
There is no need to go any further. The motion was to continue, so the matter will be brought back on July 29th.
That's terrific, because that's what I wanted to do, is move it on. Okay, now it's my turn to talk about a consent calendar item, or consent item. 3 years ago, the City Council adopted the Freeway Litter Program. And since that time, this program has had tremendous results. And this item on the agenda tonight calls for approval of an amendment and a memorandum of understanding for this freeway litter program. We've had such outstanding success by being able to find employment opportunities for the folks that work at the homeless center. I can tell you that initially, a year or so ago, we were able to place 52 people in housing units because of this program. And I'm sure that it's continuing to grow. I don't want to overlook the sponsorships and the support that we've received from Caltrans of $252,640 on these two agreements tonight, from Kerncog, who has been there the same as Caltrans from the very beginning. Kerncog will contribute $150,000 to this agreement. You've heard me recognize and acknowledge a number of private business and individual sponsors for the West Side Parkway and the old Kern River Power Plant project site at Rosedale and Coffee for another contribution of $51,500. And then lastly, the Lazzarini Foundation that we honored several months ago for a bike path cleaning donation of $25,000. You've heard Mr. Gill tonight to talk about and mention about the downtown litter cleanup program with staff members from the Bakersfield Rescue Mission, and that was sponsored by a private donor to fund that program. And so I just wanted to make public comment that this has been a wonderful program. You heard Mr. Gill talk about nearly 800 bags of trash that have been collected by these various programs. And when I first got on board with encouraging this to take place, I had these kind of expectations. And it certainly has met and exceeded my expectations with this program. And so I just felt compelled to bring recognition to these outstanding freeway litter pickup programs and encourage everyone to continue to support them. And we're always open to additional sponsorships for the West Side Parkway. Vice Mayor Hansen, would you like to make a motion on this item?
I certainly would, Mayor. Thank you. Motion to approve consent calendar item W, the freeway litter program.
You have a motion. Please cast your votes.
The motion is approved with Councilmember Hanson absent.
Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Mayor, let me correct that with Councilmember Rivera absent.
Next item, please.
Under deferred business, item A, certification of the 24th Street FEIR and approval of project. 3 pieces of correspondence were received regarding item 9A. 2 emails with attachments from Andrea Marks and Minner and Associates, Stinnett-Coup. 1 letter from Vanessa Van Gale and 1 letter from Judith Harneman were received.
Ms. Gennaro, please.
Thank you, Mayor, Council.
I received an email from Charles.
Yes, I did not submit it when I talked. Is it too late?
Madam Clerk, I received an email from Charles Webb, which I forwarded to you just a short time ago for the record.
Thank you.
Please proceed.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. I would like to begin by recognizing that, again, tonight we have a court reporter with us and ask that if you intend to speak to this item, you do so slowly, clearly, so that we can have a clean record. As the administrative report indicates, the council received public comments on this item at your last meeting. The hearing was closed, and the matter was agendized for your consideration and action tonight. The responses to the written and oral comments presented at the last meeting are attached to your administrative report. As for the comments that were submitted since May 18th, the ones that the clerk has read, The record should reflect that the clerk read into the record the items that were received, as well as the email from Mr. Webb. Staff and some of the consultants have had an opportunity to read those comments. We do not believe that there is anything new in those comments or anything which we feel requires further postponement of the issue. So with that being said, staff is recommending that you certify the final EIR and you approve the project. Thank you.
Councilmember Maxwell, please.
Thank you, Mayor Hall. City Clerk, could you go ahead and bring up my slides? I'd like to make a couple of comments, or a few comments, on the administrative report, because it certainly singled out some of the things that I had talked about last time. And I think that we can come to, this is important because it will add to some of the information that the council should be considering. The administrative report focuses in on 5 things that were deficient in the minds of myself and some of the people that spoke last time, and so I wanted to go through the 5. The first thing it says is that we did not feel that it addressed a reasonable range of alternatives. It said that $22.7 million has been spent on the environmental work for the project, and I'd like to read just a little bit more of that. The petitioner's out-of-town attorneys and representatives wish to push for more study and analysis of a great many additional alternatives, such as variations, road diet, hybrids, synchronization, et cetera, et cetera. Now, I don't think it's really fair to say that the petitioner's attorneys were for out of town, because quite frankly, so were ours. There are very few attorneys in Bakersfield that handle cases like this. So, you know, I really feel that that was something that was uncalled for. The second part about this is, you know, you could also say that there was $22.7 million that were wasted to promote one and one only particular alternative for this particular problem. So, you know, any sort of an argument like that can always be turned on its ear. Next slide, please. Now, one of the things, now these are statements from this administrative report. It says that multiple ideas that engineering guidelines do not allow and that no federal or state agency would approve. And I would say that that's pure conjecture. They give no reference, they give no identification as to what particular manual they're talking about. So there's no evidence for them to say something like that in the administrative report. Now, this is the one I love. Pretending to be a traffic engineer does not give one license in the field. Did it not occur to you that maybe there's other traffic engineers I've talked to? There are plenty of traffic engineers that work for other cities in the county of Kern that I could have talked to. I also have participated in the League of Cities, and they have workshops. In those workshops, sometimes they're talking about how to get better response or reduced times on your streets. There are people trying to sell you software to improve how your traffic lights work. Do you think they maybe have a few traffic engineers there? So to say that I'm pretending to be a traffic engineer isn't necessarily true. I very, very easily could have asked some traffic engineers their opinions. And the one that I really liked was when I showed them the diagram we had of whether you would pick the north or the south based on design. You know, 100% of them said they'd pick the south, not the north. But I won't bore you with why they said that. But let's go on. The concept, for example, of building 3 of 4 sections of 24th Street and not modifying the Tree Street area would not be allowed by federal and state design standards. As mentioned above, it would create a major traffic jam and amplify unsafe conditions exactly where it is not needed in the tree streets. I want to read for you from the 1986 study. what their conclusion was. The short-range plan consists of a median through Westchester, landscaping, pavement restriping in 23rd and 24th Street, and intersection improvements at Oak Street. What they are saying here is that in the tree streets, all they were recommending was to put a median down the middle of it, leave it as two lanes. They did not see a problem with the traffic in the Tree Street area. They did see a problem in 23rd and 24th Street in the couplet area, and they recommended that you go ahead and make it 4 lanes. And they also saw that the interchange or intersection at Oak Street had some major problems and probably needed to be redesigned. So I guess maybe back in the 1986 study, they either didn't have any traffic engineers look at it, or they didn't read the state and federal manuals. But let's move on. Truxton Avenue and Oak Street, isn't that exactly what you're doing there? Truxton and Oak Street, you go from 3 lanes to 2 lanes. As a matter of fact, if that's true that the state and the federal people would not allow that, then when we built the West Side Parkway, wouldn't they have said you can't do that because you're going to have all this traffic that comes down onto Truxton Avenue? And you're going to go from 3 lanes to 2 lanes, and then it goes back to 3 lanes down at H Street. The other part about it is if you read this recirculated EIR, it evaluates 4 sections and uses 4 criteria. Section 1 is right around 99. Section 2 is the Oak Street and 24th Street. Section 3 is the Tree Street area. And Section 4 is a couplet. So you have to evaluate each one of those segments. You don't evaluate them as a whole. Next slide, please. Another statement from the administrative report says the Higman flyover is needed, as is 24th Street. One does not substitute for the other. Now back to that 1986 study, there were 3 alternatives that addressed the congestion on 24th Street. 2 were the 24th Street modifications, in other words, widen 24th Street or make it a freeway, and the other one was Hagman flyover. Now in this study, one did substitute for the other. So why they now don't substitute does not make any sense, because isn't the objective of both the 1986 study and what we're doing today, what we're looking at today, one and the same? Now, they also mentioned that one-way streets have no support in the business community and do not address the need for the 24th Street project. I don't know that they ever did a survey of the businesses downtown. I think that's pure conjecture. We have one-way streets in the downtown area. We have 23rd and 24th. We have 19th and 20th. We have I and K. They all work beautifully. We don't have any business people saying, oh, we don't want this anymore. Because if they came to us and said, me as Ward 2 City Councilman, if they came to me and said, we need to turn these back into one-way streets, or back into two-way streets, we might consider it. But that's not what they're saying. So, you know, if you're going to make a statement like that, I think you have to back it up with some data. Next slide, please. And to the argument that signal synchronization would help reduce the traffic congestion on 24th Street. 24th Street has a synchronization program in place. Well, my question is, does that synchronization program make its own decisions? Because again, I told you I went to the League of Cities, and they have got some of the most sophisticated software you've ever seen. And it can look at an area like the couplet area of Bakersfield and make decisions on how long a light should be going on and off. It doesn't require a programmer right there or somebody to monitor it. And I know that because I drive the couplet area almost every morning, that sometimes the lights are off. So it's pretty obvious that we don't have one that makes those kind of decisions. We have one that really has to be monitored by somebody who sits in that traffic control center and looks for there to be problems. Our other problem is, of course, M Street traffic light is not owned by us, it's owned by Caltrans. And when it goes off, we have major problems. Next slide. Now I'd like to read for you on this number 2 and number 3. I'm combining the two. The first one is because it's basically talking about good faith. Notwithstanding Councilmember Maxwell's assertions, no evidence has been pro-offered indicating that responses to comments were conclusionary or that staff failed to respond to pertinent comments on significant environmental issues. And it goes on to say, the conclusions reached in the recirculated FEIR are not conclusionary, but rather are based on extensive factual information, reasonable assumptions based on standard practice, and reasoned analysis. So here's my response to that, to those two comments, and I'm going to kind of wrap into that the traffic counts, because I think it's important to know that those traffic counts were so far off. All of the conclusions in the FEIR as well as the original EIR were based on faulty traffic counts predictions. As was pointed out earlier, they're 49% off. Imagine what kind of a budget we'd be having if we were 49% off next year in our predictions. We're making major decisions on a lot of money. And what their answer to this is, we can't talk about that because we talked about that in the FEIR, even though they're 49% off. And I would say that there is a lack of a reasonable analysis in referring to the traffic count reductions on 24th Street due to the Hageman flyover. The assertion that the 13,000 vehicle reduction on 24th Street referred to in this recirculated EIR from the 2035 forecast is the same as the 15,000 vehicle reduction referenced in the 1986 study has no merit. I think of all the things that insults our intelligence more than anything else, that the 15,000 cars they're talking about in 1986 is the same 13,000 cars that this recirculated EIR is talking about today. Now, let's go to the next slide. This is one of the more important slides, because this was a question that I asked. I said, none of the vehicle count data in this report is during peak hour traffic. Why? This is consistent. Is this consistent with the FEIR? What is the standard today for determining level of service, which is LOS, daily count, or peak hour traffic? Now, that's on page 76. I want to read to you what the answer to that was in this particular volume, which is volume 3 of the recirculated EIR. It says, the commenter asked why none of the traffic data are peak hour data. Traffic count data are addressed in section 2.1.4 in the 2013 FEIR/2015 DEIR, traffic and transportation/pedestrian and bicycle facilities. This topic is not addressed in the recirculated draft EIR. Please see master response number 16, issues outside the scope of the recirculated draft EIR. So they brought up how many vehicles were going down 24th Street, but I can't talk about it. They brought up level of service, but I can't talk about it. They can't even so much as answer the question as to what do you do? Do you look at LOS or do you look at daily total counts? And anybody on this council knows, based on what we were looking at with the Commerce Way or Commerce Drive and Truxton, it was explained to us by the Public Works Director that LOS is what you have to make your decisions on, because that's what the standard is today. You don't take total traffic counts on a street, because otherwise we never would have done what we did on Commerce Drive. It was based on LOS, because the LOS is based on what's the service you give at your worst time of the day, which is usually your commute times. And that was the reason that we altered that particular intersection. You know, the thing is, I can't talk about it, but you guys brought it up. Next slide, please. So let's look again at, this comes directly from the recirculated EIR. It says criterion number 2 is project objectives. Will the alternative attain most of the basic project objectives? The primary objective of the proposed project is to relieve existing traffic congestion on 24th Street in the corridor from west of State Route 99 to east of M Street, and while providing the road capacity necessary to handle future traffic volumes and anticipated by the growth of population and employment through 2035. Now let's go through this one by one. It says, will the alternative attain most, not all. So maybe we can only do 3 out of the 4. It says that it's existing traffic congestion. And what I'm going to talk to you about next is there existing traffic congestion on all 4 segments of this roadway? Next slide. So this comes directly from this particular document. And I want my colleagues to notice something very quickly. First of all, I have highlighted 23rd and 24th Street and the total number of vehicles per day at 53,651. Now, I had thought that what I wanted to show you was that if you reduce that by 15,000, that it would bring it down to 38,651, which would put you down fairly low on the list. And you wouldn't be the second busiest roadway in Bakersfield. As a matter of fact, we used to be the busiest, but we're not the busiest anymore because we don't have quite as much traffic going on 24th Street anymore. But you know, what's interesting, and I want everybody to notice this, Truxtun Avenue is number 3. This is taken from 2014. Between Oak and State Route 99, which is 4 lanes, it's 52,000 cars. That again goes back to what I was saying. Well, if you can't do what we're saying, which is to eliminate the widening of 24th Street to 3 lanes, then how did you get away with not widening Truxtun all the way between 99 and H Street? That's inconsistent. But this is the beauty of this particular slide. Look at 23rd and 24th Street. It says it's to the west of F Street. How many lanes are there on 23rd Street to the west of F Street? And how many lanes are there on 24th Street to the west of F Street? I believe there's 3 each. That's a total of 6. But in this particular table, it's saying it's 4. That's a total misrepresentation. Because we know that down in the Tree Street area, the number of cars that are traversing that are much less than what you see down in the Couplet area, because keep in mind the Couplet area is a business district. It's a destination. You've got people from the east side of town going down there, and you've got people from the west side of town going down there. You don't have everybody going straight through. And because you don't have everybody going straight through, you don't have the kind of volume on the tree streets as you do at that particular junction. But I mean, that should upset my colleagues right there. They have misrepresented in this particular table exactly what the number of lanes at that particular point is. Next slide, please. You know, I have looked at this, if I've looked at this slide 10 times, I've looked at this slide probably 1,000 times. And it wasn't until recently that it finally jumped out to me what the significance of this particular slide is. Now this is a slide that comes from the original FEIR. Actually, it comes from the draft. It shows that in 2008 you had, started at the top, 24th Street demand west of Oak Street. Okay, so that's section 1. That's the section by 99 and 24th, where it's kind of where the Buck Owens Boulevard and all that kind of stuff is. And it shows your morning and your evening peak hour traffic counts. Now, it forecasts in 2015 a certain number, and it forecasts 2035 a certain number. But let's go back to 2008, because I thought I was going to make a really good point here. You see that Camino del Rio is, of course, where Costco is and the 2 hotels. And you can see that we got a little bit of a problem there. Now, south, you go to States 99 southbound ramps, you definitely got a problem. Now, let me explain something. LOS, level of service. If you have got an A, B, or a C, you're okay. That's acceptable. But when you start getting from a C to a D, that's when you've got breakdown of your roads. So anything that's a D, E, or an F, you should be concerned about. So you can see that on that second one, the State Route 99 southbound ramps, State Route 58, that's a D. We should be concerned about that. The one below it is Buck Owens Boulevard 99 ramps, Select Avenue. That's a C and a D. We should be concerned about that. The next one is Buck Owens Boulevard and the ramps at 24th. That's a D and an F. Definitely need to be concerned about that. And of course, Oak Street at 24th, it's an E. We currently have congestion problems all along that corridor, but that's segment 1, that's segment 2. Look at the next one, Oak Street and Truxton. This was done in 2008, before they ever did the West Park Freeway. We already had a problem on Truxton and Oak. Yet they went ahead and did the West Park Freeway and never said a word about, oh yeah, you know what? We probably need to widen Truxton all the way from where the West Park Freeway joins Truxton all the way to H Street. You know, the funny thing about it is, you probably have the room on Truxton a lot more than you've got it on 24th to go ahead and do that without taking one house. Okay, the point I was going to make. What I have in yellow, if you think about it, since the traffic counts were so far off, 49% off, you basically take all those numbers and you just move them to the right, and you know what? Today we still don't have a problem with congestion. Now, what did that last slide just say? It said that we already have a congestion problem, but this slide says no, we don't. But that's not the point of this. Do you know what the real point of this is? Look to the left. Do you see any of the tree streets? Colleagues, do you see any of the tree streets there? No, what you're looking at is the couplet area. So not only do we not have any problems in the tree street area in terms of LOS, we don't have any problems in the couplet area either. So, you know, we have been duped. We have been duped into thinking that we have a major problem in the Tree Street area. Yet this particular table, along with everything else that I can find, never ever proves that you have a congestion problem in the Tree Street areas. As I mentioned, you have a commerce area down in the couplet area, and I advocate, if you don't want to do the one-way streets, I'm okay with that. Let's go ahead and widen it to 4 lanes. That would take care of section 4. You have a problem over at Oak and 24th. I advocate that we change that. It needs to be changed, and I advocate that we go ahead and change the things that we need to change to make the interchange at 99 much better. But you can't tell me that they have given us any proof that we've got a congestion problem on 24th Street in the Tree Street areas. And to have a commerce area and another area with drawing traffic doesn't mean you have to make it 3 lanes in both directions, especially when you're considering that you're going to take and destroy a historic part of Bakersfield. Where's the proof? Next slide, please. Only Olive Street should be dry, but it's a street. Just west of 99 carries more traffic on a daily basis. The fact is that 24th Street is overcrowded. I think we can kind of question that now. And has far more accidents than other comparable segments of arterial streets. Raising questions about preciseness of future traffic projections does not change the fact that 24th Street is operating over capacity and is dangerous. So we can pretty much throw that operating at overcapacity out. But they make a statement here, overcrowded and has far more accidents than other comparable segments of arterial streets. Next slide. This is straight from page 116 of the FEIR from 2015. Traffic accident data. Table 2.10 provides 3-year traffic accident data, January 05 to December 07, for 24th Street between State Route 99 and State Route 204. The data shows that the total accident rate for 24th Street between 99 and B Street is well below statewide average for similar highways. Now, can everybody remember what the last slide just said? It says that there's more accidents, and it's dangerous. Well, this says there's fewer. And this is what they submitted when they convinced us all that we needed to rip out a whole row of houses, destroy over 200 trees, so they could have their precious 3 lanes in both directions on 24th. Gentlemen and lady, it's not necessary. So let's go to the next slide. Now, one of the other comments they made was the city has not been open in compromise or changes. And the 2 things that they point to is that they changed on the landscaping and they changed on the cul-de-sacs. But I would say, based on the testimony from Mr. Kress last time, and in his statement, and for everybody, this is in Ms. Van Gel's letter to us all. He said that they had negotiated the support from his group as long as they could get the landscaping, and then later negotiated that they'd get their support if they could have the cul-de-sacs. Well, you might call that compromise and change. I call that a little bit of bribery. Because before then, everybody was in the whole area was against the widening of 24th Street. So I think it's too bad that that's how that came about, and that's how you're at this point representing it. Next slide. And the last thing they talk about is public support. A majority of the public from the impacted areas have supported the project during the recirculated EIR and public comment period. Now, I'm assuming that that means when they told you that 70% of the people that responded to the recirculated EIR said that they were for it, and 13% said they were against it, and I don't remember what the other percentage said, but they said something. I presume that's correct? Is that what you're referring to, Mr. Tandy?
In part, along with the speakers that appeared at the last EIR hearing.
Great. Next slide. So based on that, based on if there's a majority of people who want a certain alignment or something done, you'd have to look at the comments. I went to this April 30th, 2008 scoping meeting done with the Kern County Superintendent of Schools, and I've mentioned this before. I thought I was the only bright guy in the whole room because I told them, hey, you know what you guys really ought to do? You ought to do the Hageman flyover. You know, you take a bunch of cars off 24th. It would be great. You wouldn't have to destroy all these homes. And they looked at me and said, oh, yeah, that's a really good idea. We're going to write that down. They wrote that down. You know what? I went home and I told all my neighbors. That's what I told them. And all my neighbors said, well, that's the same thing I told them. There was an overwhelming number of people who told them the exact same thing I did that night, because I've talked to a lot of my neighbors. Now, there are also comments on the draft EIR. 75% of the comments, you can go back and look at them, to the letters that were written and the comments that were made. 75% of them all said, do the Hageman flyover. Now, based on what was just said, that 70% of the people are now in favor of this, of approving this recirculated EIR, shouldn't they have gone ahead and done Hageman flyover? Because 75% of the people that's what they were for. But I think what's interesting, they had the 1986 study that said the Hageman flyover was a viable alternative to widening 24th Street. Keep in mind, they're short-term was to go ahead and do 4 lanes on the couplet area to redo 24th Street at Oak. They didn't really get into what was going on at 99. So the Hageman flyover is a possible alternative. Yet, you know, there is no mention of Hageman flyover in either the draft EIR or there's no mention of the Hageman flyover in the draft EIR. How come? Why was there not even a mention of it? So when you talk about public support, in the scoping meetings, the obligation of the government is to listen to the public and to get public input and make that part of what your EIR looks like. So if all these people commented that we think you should do Hageman flyover, why wasn't it in the draft? It wasn't. It was in the final only because they had to respond to those things. So, next slide. So what was the aha moment? What was the moment? Did the traffic engineers huddle up and say, okay, we've decided, we think we ought to widen 24th Street to the north? Did they suddenly say we're voting today? What was the aha moment? I don't think there was one. I still maintain that the widening of 24th Street to the north was decided long before they ever had the scoping meeting. And you know, I could have done this presentation differently, could have asked a lot of questions and embarrassed people. But I think everybody here understands exactly what I'm saying tonight. It has never been proved that we have a congestion problem in the Tree Street area. You know what our biggest problem is, traffic-wise, in the Tree Street area? Speeding. I drove home today at about 1 o'clock. There were 3 officers out there with guns pulling people over. So if we have a congestion problem on 24th Street in the Tree Street area, what the heck were they doing? Weren't they wasting their time? Wasn't there enough congestion there that I couldn't have gone over the speed limit? No, every day. At 7:30 in the morning, 8 o'clock in the morning, we have people speeding down that street. It's our #1 problem. Now, there are 4, if not 5 votes up here tonight that are going to go ahead and send this, they're going to go ahead and certify this EIR, and they're going to send it to the judge. And you know how I know that? Because in all this time that we've been looking at this, and I have read all of the information, I have evaluated all the information, I have spent a lot of time trying to be as scientific in this as possible, to come to the conclusions based on the information. And as you can see tonight, I have done nothing more than use the same words that were given to me and the information that was given to me, and simply looked at it under different eyes. And in all this time, I'm the only one that's done that. Until last meeting, when my colleague to my right, who's not here, asked a question, a pertinent question that had a technical basis to it, there has never been another council member up here that has asked a technical question or had anything to say about this EIR. You know what they've had to say? They have chastised me for saying what I've had to say. So that's how I know there's enough votes up here to go ahead and certify this. And I don't think it should be certified. I agree. I think we should be sent back and told, look, come up with a different plan. You want to do part 1, part 2, and part 4. I think it solves our problem as best we can, and then do the Hageman flyover. It'll take a lot of traffic off of that area. And you know, for Mr. Kress and his group, keep your cul-de-sacs. Let's beautify 24th. Let's do what the 1986 study said. It actually has some really nice pictures of what they recommended as far as landscaping. And I would ask my colleagues, have you read that 86 study yet? It's really not that long. So because of all that, I cannot, in good conscience, agree to certify this. And so if somebody else would like to make that motion, you know where I stand.
Vice Mayor Hanson.
Thank you, Mayor Hall. Without comment, I'll make a motion to approve certification of the FEIR and approval of the 24th Improvement Project, 24th Street Improvement Project.
Councilmember Sullivan.
Now, I wonder if I'm going to be the only one commenting tonight. Hopefully not. Quite to my surprise, just before about an hour before I left earlier tonight for the council meeting, Kathy Butler called. And of course, Kathy has been connected, has been the driving force for the Downtown Business Association for years. And she, evidently, Kevin Bartel had intended to come tonight to make quite a lengthy statement, strongly, completely representing the Downtown Business Association. Kevin is the chairman of the DBA. So I didn't have any paper other than this envelope, so I started quickly. I was trying to get ready, and I was quickly making comments to I was making notes to what she was trying to tell me in detail. And what she mainly kept repeating was the Downtown Business Association is ready for this project to move forward. She repeated that. That was basically the main point to all of the things that she was wanting me to relay for her tonight. In her points, she was saying a number of things, but it's their position that the entrance to the city has needed to look better for years. That was interesting. Of course, we agree on that. She called it the entrance to the city. Of course, we call it the gate, it's being called the gateway to the city, but has needed to look better for years. It is the gateway to our city. And we have the opportunity to have it look wonderful for the next forever, being the gateway to Bakersfield. But I was completely forgetting that Kathy Butler is one of the ones that has relocated. I remember hearing that, but I was completely forgetting that. Now, I want to ask one of the staff members, approximately how many residents in the affected area have already relocated? Is there anyone remembering approximately? Usually I give warning
I'm looking
for
for Mr.
questions.
Anderson. Sometimes he watches on the monitor.
Over
next door.
half, certainly about 3/4. Sorry for that question.
Give me patient. Staff, would you go? Sorry about the delay.
Well, sorry for this unexpected question. I don't like to surprise staff with questions for details, so I'm happy to wait on that. It will be interesting to our viewing audience to have that question, very important question, answered. And let me just say something. My colleague has just said that certain things have never come up. Okay. Thank you, Don. Get out of your, hopefully you weren't in an, well.
I was in the caucus
I
room.
won't say it, yes, watching intently.
Yes, I was,
Thank
intently.
you. Thank you, I'm not surprised.
We've moved, 16 people have moved. There's 21 homes that we that we are going to purchase. 20 of those actually have been purchased. We're still negotiating with one party, and we have 16 homes that are vacant that we're managing. And the other 3 have been rented back to the previous owners.
Until the appropriate time or until they need to move, right? Have
Until
been
we
rented.
can move forward with the project.
Yeah, okay, very fair. I mean, that's the facts. Great, thank you, Don, thank you very much. You know, it was just brought out, I mean, it was suggested that certain things have never been brought up, have never been mentioned. We started working on this. I'm glad that the date, April 30th, 2008, is in print, because last time I mentioned 2008, April 30th, 2008, all of this was brought up, all of this. You know, we have worked very hard and very long on this project. This has not been just a quick to come, quick to decide project. And so Kathy Butler and Kathy Butler actually moved 2 years ago in October, and they are delighted. She is one of the ones that has already moved. I mean, she has been very polite and very quiet about all of this. I mean, she could have been very opinionated, complaining, all of that, but she has not been. She has been very professional about this, listening to the process, the project. They all have relocated, her neighbors have relocated. They're delighted. They were very fairly compensated for their homes where they intended to be, intended to stay, and they have been handled very, very fairly. They have relocated, they're completely settled, and they are delighted. But we started going over this I've been on the council for a long time, and I am remembering way back going over all the different options and all the different choices. And yes, our staff has done a lot of work on this, but you know, okay, I'll end in just a minute. But yet, interesting. Kathy was, you know, strongly saying that the entrance has needed to look better for a long time. That was good. I have that written down. But Kathy has lived very closely to the curve at C Street, and the accidents, perhaps, that are being mentioned, she has witnessed for a number of years the screeches, that is she considers that a very, very unsafe curve. And of course, we all know that it is. But she has lived there through many rainstorms. And she says there has seldom been a rainstorm that there has not been some type of an accident, from minor to very unminor. So she has witnessed, and that has been her main concern from the very beginning when this, when the project first started being worked on. The unsafeness of that particular area right there. And she also brought out the ambulances, the fire equipment. That is just, we've all been around that curve, and it's dangerous. And especially when you're needing to travel at a high speed, it is dangerous. So that's where the many accidents have been. And this, of course, will be corrected when this project moves forward. But, you know, last meeting, you know, after the 45-minute presentation, you know, this ordeal, and that was a little offensive to one of our council members last week, but this ordeal is really the most perfect example of democracy. We 7 council members represent all of Bakersfield. Some of us have just been elected, and others have been here for a long time. But this is democracy. We are each one responsible for our own vote. But certainly downtown Bakersfield really belongs to everyone. It's one of our main responsibilities to do what is right for downtown Bakersfield, but for Bakersfield as a whole, long term. We take votes like this and decisions and huge projects like this very, very seriously. And it has been mentioned through the months and through the years that we have been given an opportunity. I have, from the beginning, I have appreciated the opportunity that we have been given. It hasn't been easy to work out, and it's, you know, it hasn't been an easy project. And we've had our amount of controversy, and I appreciate the ladies that are very dedicated to voicing they're affected, and to voicing their opinions, and you know, just the dedication, coming the meetings and the weeks that they have. But I would like to ask my colleague that was really elected, I won't say certainly only, but elected for the purpose, one of the purposes elected for this project. And Terry, last meeting, when you again, you know, gave the slideshow, you know, the 45-minute presentation, were you hoping that was the purpose for us to change our mind on the project? That's a question. Can you answer yes or no?
I believe that every time that I have an opportunity to talk about what's happening on 24th Street and the waste of money to widen it, I'm going to take that opportunity. I am always hopeful that there are other council members who will listen to what I have to say, to look at the data, to realize that there is a lot of data you've been given that is erroneous. And I'm just always hopeful that we'll finally get to that one piece of information that will change a couple of people into thinking that, why is the data wrong? Why can't we consider?
Thank you.
Why
Thank
can't
you.
we consider?
I'll take that
Why
as a
can't we
yes.
consider the fact that the forecasts were 49% incorrect?
I asked a yes or no question. Thank you, Terry.
Sure.
I appreciate that. Okay, the term was mentioned again, waste of money. Obviously, we don't agree, Terry. You know, 1 out of 7 council members, we do not agree. And now the downtown businesses, I appreciate Kathy calling me and giving me, she wasn't speaking, she's one of the ones that have already moved, but 17 families have already moved and found other places. So it's beyond, like it or not, it's beyond the point where, a long time ago, we made our decision. There has been no waiver, no inkling of a suggestion that anyone is wanting to change their vote. And as time goes on, we have gotten more firm because we were negotiating, we were moving forward. And so I'm just wondering how many more times this is going to be on, Alan, how many more times is this going to be on our agenda?
Mayor, Councilmember Sullivan, if you take a vote on the motion that's pending, hopefully this will be the last time.
Thank you for that answer. All right, well, I won't take up any more of the time, but I just realized this is democracy. You know, we are elected by all of Bakersfield. We've made a decision. We've been working on this. You know, I want to bring up two more things very, very quickly that she brought up. She is on the, Kathy Butler happens to be on the Historic Preservation Commission. It has been brought up that some of the homes perhaps can be saved. That remains to be seen, but yet she is willing to work with the city on grants to see which perhaps could be saved, which would not be saved. And also she was mentioning the pedestrian overpass. That was, you know, that was brought up many months ago. But yeah, she thinks that's a great idea. So there are ways to make this even better, to be able to address all of the legitimate concerns that have come up. So anyway, I'm sorry. Kevin Bartel would have made these comments, but he was unable to. So I have done my best to represent the Downtown Business Association. Thank you.
Councilmember Smith.
Thank you, Mayor. Some things don't seem to be factual that Councilmember Maxwell states is factual. The synchronization program on 24th Street, somebody has to sit and watch that all the time?
Mayor, Councilmember Smith, no, someone does not sit there and watch the system all the time. It is a coordinated route, along with coordinated with several north-south streets, which extends all the way from 58 all the way up to 204. So it is a grid system. It is coordinated several different directions, and it is not monitored daily. As Councilmember Maxwell did point out, we do have a few flaws in the system because M Street is not connected to our facility because it is a state intersection. We do occasionally get an error with that intersection, and we do contact the state to work with them to get that timing recorrected.
It is a highly sophisticated software system.
Correct.
Operating on a grid.
We use the latest technology and timing and modeling for that system.
Thank you. Also, he mentioned the trucks and widening. Why didn't we do that initially? As I remembered, it was always planned to be done, and we did it once we were able to get the money. And we knew that the West Side Parkway and Truxton Oak was going to need widening, and that was part of the original plan.
Councilmember Smith, getting the 3 lanes under the 99 bridge was a very technically complex engineering issue, which took a good year and a half after the West Side Parkway was open to come to resolve on. So yes, we were working on it. We knew it was needed. We could complete 9/10 of the project more rapidly than the 1/10 that remains, and we're in the design and starting property acquisition phase on that element.
Thank you. With the help of Chief Williamson, I get traffic accidents and fatality reports every month for the last couple of years, I think. And I can tell you, I look at it every month, and every month, the area around 24th Street has more dots on it than most other arterials in town. There's no question that that segment of road is more dangerous. And I personally believe I was elected to try and help the safety and welfare of the citizens of Bakersfield, and there's no doubt in my mind that the improvements for this road will help with the safety and welfare of the citizens of Bakersfield. I've heard Hagman Flyover 10,000 times since I've been up here, and I've driven Golden State in the morning, and it already has problems. It's not an answer to this problem. It is a problem in and of itself. The table that you show where you make the argument that, yes, we have problems at Oak and 24th, and yes, we have problems at the other end, but let's just leave the middle, makes no sense. As we are leaders, we are responsible to plan for the future. And if it's obvious that you have problems on both sides of a road, it's obvious that in the future you will have a problem in the middle. This is a good project. The community as a whole looks forward to it moving forward, and I am 100% in favor of it. Thank you.
Councilmember Weir.
Thanks, Mayor. Well, I just wanted to make sure that a couple things are clear in my mind. So, are we doing the Hageman flyover? Or are we not doing the Hageman flyover?
Councilmember Weir, all of the traffic modeling that led to the identification of needs in the TRIP program included the Hageman flyover. We currently have funding to take it through the property acquisition phase, at which point in time it's our intention to have a shovel-ready project available for future federal and state grants to finance the construction.
So under this plan, we get both?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. A couple more questions. I don't like the word duped, and I don't like the word bribes. And since I've been on the council, I don't believe I've ever been duped. And I don't think that there's been an occasion where bribery has been an issue. I think I was here when the cul-de-sacs were going in. I don't remember any secret meetings, any payoffs, any quid pro quo, easy for me to say. And so I specifically resent that comment. I think that's outlandish and it is despicable. To think that we've sat here for the last 10 years and somehow been duped by Parsons or by city staff or by anybody else that would be complicit in something like that is beyond imagination. We have an opportunity to improve a section of town that for the last 30 years has dilapidated. It's become worse, and it's going to continue to be worse unless we address the problem. And as far as traffic not flowing on 24th Street, I'll agree. I don't drive on 24th Street. I think it is too dangerous. I hate driving on 24th Street. But I would love to someday drive back to that neighborhood and see a beautiful entry to the city of Bakersfield. I think it's about time. And if I'm not mistaken, we started talking about the expansion of Truxton Avenue underneath Freeway 99, because I remember Sue Benham and I sitting up here talking about that. And we asked questions about that a long time ago, if I'm not mistaken.
If memory serves, it was on or before the initiation of construction of the links currently open.
Correct. And wouldn't we expect that if more traffic flowed through that area, that there'd be less traffic in some other area?
Yes.
And isn't this, I mean, it's an integrated traffic program. Is that not correct? So if you take out something, it's not going to perform as expected. Is that correct?
The TRIP program is based on a system study. So we are, in essence, all the components of this system work together. So you're correct. If we take out one portion of this system, another portion will fail.
Okay. I'm in complete support. Thank you.
You have a motion by Vice Mayor Hansen on this item. Please cast your votes.
The motion is approved with Councilmember Rivera absent and Councilmember Maxwell voting no.
Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Under consent calendar public hearings, item 10, consent hearing items 10A through 10F for approval. Notices were mailed to 101,150 residential and commercial customers regarding items 10D and E. 10 correspondence items were received. Of that amount, 9 letters of protest, opposed refuse and sewer rate increases. 1 letter was received regarding 2 parcels. 1 protest was for both refuse and sewer. 1 protest was for refuse only.
It is now time for the consent calendar hearings. The purpose of this section is to vote on all of the items listed under consent calendar hearings in one motion without further comment. If anyone wishes to speak on any of these hearing items listed, the item must be removed from this portion of the agenda. If an item is removed, it will be placed at the end of the regular public hearing portion of the meeting. At this time, I'll open consent calendar public hearing items 10A, B, C, D, E, and F, and ask if there is anyone in the audience who wishes to speak on any of these hearing items. Seeing none, I will now ask, does any council member wish to remove an item from the consent calendar hearings?
Yeah, I'd like to remove D and E, please.
Okay, with those 2 items being removed, then they will be handled at the end of the regular public hearing portion of the meeting. Okay, with the exception of items 10, D, and E, does any council member have any comment on any of these consent calendar public hearing items? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing on items 10A, B, and C, and F. And a motion for approval, please. Cast your votes.
Mayor, that's my motion. Thank you.
The motion is approved with Councilmember Rivera absent.
Okay, let's move to the next item.
Hearings, Mayor.
Before I open the public hearing, I wish to state this presentation time policy. Each side will be allowed a 15-minute period. It's 15 minutes for all speakers. Therefore, it is important that you identify yourself and make your statement quickly so that others may speak. We will hear statements from those opposed to the staff recommendation first. Then we will hear from those who wish to speak in favor of the staff recommendation. If there is testimony on both sides, each side will be allowed a 5-minute rebuttal period. You will notice a clock on the wall behind me which indicates 15 minutes. Please step to the microphone and identify yourself. And at 14 minutes, a yellow light will come on, and at the end of 15 minutes, a red light will flash indicating that your time is up and to quickly end your statement. You may pose questions during your statement, but they will not be answered until the public hearing is closed. If you have written comments that are longer than your verbal statement, please provide it to the city clerk, who will then provide the necessary copies to the city council. Again, please courteous in the 2 others who wish to speak. Unless there is an approval by the majority of the city council, there is a strict 15-minute time limit for all those in favor or those in opposition to the staff recommendation. So please be precise and do not repeat the remarks of previous speakers. Madam Clerk, please read the first public hearing item.
Item A is a public hearing for the fiscal year 2016-17 operating and capital improvement program budgets.
Mr. Hewitt, please proceed.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and City Council members. Chris Hewitt, City Manager's Office. Each year, a public hearing is required to receive public comment prior to the adoption of the budget. The fiscal year 2016-17 budget is proposed at $461.4 million. That's comprised of a $407.4 million operating budget and a $54 million capital improvement budget. The final adoption of next year's budget is scheduled for your regularly scheduled meeting of June 29th of this year. So at this point in time, staff is recommending that the council hear public testimony related to the budget. Thank you.
At this time, I'll open the public hearing and ask if there's anyone in the audience who wishes to speak in opposition to the staff recommendation. Persons wishing to speak in opposition to the staff recommendation. Seeing none, I will now ask if there are persons present who wish to speak in favor of the staff recommendation. Persons wishing to speak in favor of the staff recommendation. Seeing none, I will now close the public hearing and return to council for comment. No action is needed on this item. This will be carried over to June the 29th under deferred business items. Does any council member have a comment on this item? Madam Clerk, let's read the next public hearing.
Item B, Mayor, is a public hearing to consider adopting domestic water quantity rates, monthly readiness to serve rates, and monthly private fire protection service rates for fiscal year 2016-17, proposed 3.5 rate increase. A staff memorandum was received transmitting additional protests to the domestic water rate increase from Mary E. Madsen, Perusa, and Jeffrey Wolford, Erica Neri, Cecilia Anzalone, and Joanne Klein.
Mr. Chianello, please.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor, members of the council. The staff recommendation is to open up the hearing for a proposed 3.5% water rate increase, both on the flat metered portion, on the non-metered fire service, as well as the quantity rate. The recommendation is to open up the hearing today, and then based on our Proposition 218, I think 45-day notification period, it be heard and closed on our next council meeting. I believe that would be June 29th. So with that, that would be staff recommendation, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
At this time, I'll open the public hearing on this item and ask if there's anyone who wishes to speak in opposition to the staff recommendation. Persons wishing to speak in opposition to the staff recommendation, please come forward. Please identify yourself and proceed.
Yeah, this is a comment.
Mr. Fox, please identify yourself.
Mr. Mayor and members of the council. You know, I've been on the state water plan and the Cal-Fed Bay Delta program, which Mr. Hansen finds amusing. And what I find out about this is kind of an Econ 101 program. Because you've had water conservation, and because of the conservation, the water usage goes down, the income has gone down. But the costs are the same, and they're going to really go up. So there are three income areas I like to talk about. The first one is the readiness to service cost, which is kind of a euphemism. Instead of raising the rates, we raise that, and it looks better. The second one is the rates themselves. In California, it is a policy to have what they call conservation pricing. The first bunch of water is at a certain price, and it goes up. The more you use, the more you pay. Kern has been quite famous and notorious for going the other way. And then we get the third one. I'll come back to this readiness of service later. But the third one, and that's kind of like on that, is the property tax. So we're buying, this is another purchase. And on everybody's taxes, hidden, is the zones of benefit. And zone of benefit is Bakersfield, property taxes by water for Improvement District 4. It goes to the water agency. And the water agency processes the water, not the city. And they do a good job, but it's not without a contract. It was set up years ago where we subsidize local program farmers, but things have changed quite a bit. And the main thing is getting to is the water bank. And there's been water marketing. And water from here, the entitlements are being sold. And also water is taking out upstream of the aqueduct that belongs to Los Angeles. Water from here has to be pumped out to pay back Los Angeles for the borrowed water. And it's straightly being sold so they can have lawns in Lancaster, have a nice looking desert. That is making money there. As that water is empty, that bank is empty, it's been embezzled, is a very appropriate analogy, and water from other areas migrates into it, and it is being sent out. So we're paying to have, aren't we having fun? We're paying to have the water taken away. And we're not getting water. Is the water project, the water fix. The fix is what addicts use, and it's appropriate. It's going to be quite expensive. It's up to, about, with the interest over the years, about $50, $60 million. But we won't get the water because it's going to be tied up in court after the tunnels are built. And they're going to take 20 years. And as this goes on, the water is going to be removed from family farms, not program farms, in the Delta. And when the water is taken out, the salt water at high tide comes in and wipes them out. And that is going to be why it is going to be paid for locally and not by the state. State wouldn't get it passed, so it's going to have to be paid for us by revenue bonds locally. And that's on the ballot in November. The family farms up there I do relate to. And I do relate to it because one of the first income sources that you have here. Because when I talk to them up there, I do talk about the readiness to service thing. Because when I was a kid, one of my chores was annually, I took Susie, our milk cow, down to our neighbors when she's readiness to be served, and I see it as a perfect analogy to the current situation. Thank you.
Are there additional persons present who wish to speak in opposition to the staff recommendation? Persons wishing to speak in opposition to the staff recommendation. Seeing none, I will ask if there are persons present who wish to speak in favor of the staff recommendation. Persons wishing to speak in favor of the staff recommendation. Seeing none, I now will close the public hearing on this item.
Mayor, we actually need to keep the public hearing open and continue this to the next council meeting.
I hadn't got to that part of my script yet, but I was working toward it. But thank you very much. We will now, as I've been instructed, the hearing will remain open and continue to June the 29th City Council meeting. Okay, the next item we're going to consider is consent calendar hearing items 10D and E, which were removed by Councilmember Maxwell. Councilmember Maxwell, we will take on item number E first. 10E.
Got it. I had a question. As far as in our funds for, let's see, this would be solid waste or, no, for our sewer rates, what sort of a fund balance do we have there?
Mayor, Councilmember Maxwell, late in the afternoon today, you did receive a memo from Mr. Tandy in regards to some information in regards to the fund balance. It does indicate that we are currently holding a $37.8 million.
$1 million?
Yes.
I guess I just have a problem because in the last 8 years, people's incomes have not gone up. They've been stagnant. And if we've got that kind of money in our funds, I think that we should hold off as long as we can before we start increasing rates, out of consideration for our constituents and the fact that the city does seem to be a little bit on the flush side with some money.
Councilmember.
Yes.
Councilmember Maxwell,
Am I missing something here?
Yes, I would encourage you to review that memo. There are several elements that we were required to keep that fund balance. One of the elements is a debt service reserve. Another is a rate stabilization. These are both contractual requirements for the plant. I believe Finance Director may be able to pull this memo up for you to help explain.
Mayor Hall, council members, I'm going to ask for some technical assistance on, this is the memo. A copy of it was emailed to you earlier today. We also provided a hard copy for your convenience prior to the meeting started. Councilor Maxwell, as the Public Works Director was explaining, of the $37 million, about $20 million of that is set aside for either debt service or capital reserves. So really, there's only about a $17 million unreserved fund balance. And
Okay, and what are our operating losses going to be this coming year?
our operating losses. Well, while I'm looking that up, what I was going to say.
I mean,
Sorry.
if you want, we can defer this for one more meeting. I mean, we need to do it by next meeting, do we not? No?
A delay causes a delay in the timeframes when the rates can be altered, and there's documents that have to be filed with the county. I would not encourage that delay.
Okay, well,
Mr.
you know
Smith's
what?
perfectly happy.
I'm sure that the rest of my colleagues are going to approve this. I'll just state that for both D and E, out of consideration of the fact that our constituents have not seen an increase in their incomes, I understand we've got some operational things that are costing us more money, but you know, if we go through a deflationary cycle, then it'll cost us less. And I just think that if we can hold this off a little bit longer, which in looking at these unreserved numbers, I think we can. I will be voting against it. Thanks.
Councilmember Weir.
Thanks, Mayor. Wasn't part of that memo that these reserves are used to float while we wait for property tax revenues to come in?
Mayor Hall, Councilmember Rita, thank you. Yes, the available funds are used to cash flow the operations for the first 5 or 6 months of the year. As you know, both the most of the sewer revenues and the garbage collection, those are on the tax bill. We don't get our first tax bill payment until mid to late December, and then some more money in April. So for that first 6 months of the period, we need that operating cash flow to continue to pay bills.
Thank you very much.
Councilmember Parlier.
Thank you, Mayor. And Nelson, if you could just clarify if I got this right. If we don't do this, could it affect our bond rating or our credit rating or anything going forth?
Mayor Hall, Councilman Parley, yes, it could. The current rating we have, when we refunded the wastewater bonds just a couple of years ago, we got a AA rating from Standard & Poor's and a AA2 from Moody's. Those were established because of the longstanding financial condition of the wastewater enterprise, and should it deteriorate, it could impact our bond rating in the future.
So when you say that deteriorating and affect us in the future, so essentially it could cost us more money in the future if we don't do this. Would that be a fair statement?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Nelson.
Councilmember Smith.
I also would not be in favor of not moving forward with this. I think staff does an excellent job in being fiscally conservative, and it's not that we're wildly spending taxpayers' money, that we are being conservative, and we're doing the best we can to save future money and today's money. I know out at the sewer plants, we have solar panels, we have energy savings, we do everything we can to be as efficient as possible. So I'm in favor of it. Thank you.
Councilmember Maxwell.
Thank you, Mayor Hall. You know, in light of what my colleagues have pointed out, I am going to change my mind and go ahead and support this. Thanks.
Councilmember Sullivan.
Just very quickly, you know, we have an excellent finance team that it would be interesting to know the number of years of service collectively that represent the decisions and the information that is given to the council members. And we're probably one of the most financially solid cities in California. We probably could win the prize because that information comes through time after time. So, you know, it's not like we have to be concerned, paranoid about every decision, or every recommendation that is given to us. We don't need to be distrustful. No, that's something we do not need to be. So appreciate the staff. We all do our homework, understanding the information that is given to us as much as possible. We don't understand, you're immediately available to answer our questions, which we need to have you do, and you do, and we appreciate that. So, you know, we are in good hands. We have a proven record over many years of top quality stability and decision-making. So I think we seldom do we go against a recommendation that is a very important, serious recommendation, because it doesn't just come at the spur of a moment. I mean, there are years and hours that go into, I mean, we have a record, and we're improving our technology all the time to keep track of just how we spend our money, where, why. So we use the latest technology, and you guys do a good job, so thank you.
Vice Mayor Hanson.
Thank you, Mayor Hall. Yeah, I was the one that raised the question, so I appreciate that information you passed on to me, Nelson. My motion is to approve the consent calendar public hearing items 10D, David, E, Edward.
You have a motion. Please cast your votes.
The motion is approved with Councilmember Rivera absent.
Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Council and mayor statements.
Councilmember Weir, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to announce that we had a very successful community meeting in Northeast Bakersfield at Rio Bravo Country Club a couple weeks ago. We had 140, 150 people there. Staff worked really, really hard to make that meeting as informative as it could be. And I'd just like to thank Steve Talia and the rest of the staff that were at that meeting. Diane was there. It was a very successful meeting. Everybody seemed to really appreciate it, and I appreciate all the work that you guys did. Thank you. Good night.
Councilmember Smith.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of things. I would reinforce what you stated about the freeway litter program and the Bakersfield Homeless Center, and that's been a great program. And again, I appreciate you getting that started, and it really has changed the way Bakersfield as a whole looks to people that drive through and the people that live here, and I appreciate it. We had a change order for Rosedale Highway, and I appreciate staff working on that. A change order was to make the medians look better with some stamped concrete, and Rosedale Highway can use whatever we can do to make it look better, and that's appreciated. And then the last thing was a week or so ago, we received notice that we received money for bike lanes out in Ward 4. And again, safety on the streets is always my priority, and I think that does help safety, and the more that we can do for the welfare and safety of our constituents is appreciated. So thank you, staff.
Vice Mayor Hanson.
Thank you, Mayor. Tough meeting tonight. Apologize to everyone for getting tongue-tied when I got on that League of Cities business, but man, that thing drives me nuts every once in a while. Just one fast referral. I have a letter here from Guarantee Solar. It's regarding the PACE program. I'd like staff to just take a look at it at their leisure and report back to us. Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Councilmember Parlier.
Thank you, Mayor. And I just want to echo the comments from Bob Smith. KBB was your baby, Mayor. You started it several years ago in the litter program, and your efforts have really resulted in the beautification of our city, and I just want to thank you for that. I had a business owner constituent in my area call me, and her words were that there's been multiple vagrants sleeping on our business sidewalk, harassing our customers, preventing our customers from entering the business. She said they're fairly young, early 20s primarily. She thinks they're, again, her words, they're doing spice or bath salts, and it's affecting the two other businesses adjacent to her too. It's the West Fair Chief. If you could reach out, and I have info, and I can follow up with you and email you that information, but if you could reach out and see if they can help her out, I'd sure appreciate it. Thank you.
Councilmember Sullivan.
Thank you, Mayor. I had the pleasure of attending the first of 4 Beal Park concerts last Sunday. So, and Diane, if you could come forward, I'm wanting you to give some information about movies in the park. But anyway, we have needed to reduce down the last few years to 4 Beal Park band concerts, but it's every Sunday in June. They're 1 down, 3 to go. Diane, you are usually there. I expected to see you. Something came up, but you expect to be there next Sunday. But it was wonderful. And at the end, the park director asked, actually the man talking during the concert, but he asked each one there to bring their families, tell their neighbors, and get more people there next Sunday. So I'm announcing it to our viewing public. They're wonderful. It was one of the hottest days of the year so far, and there was a nice breeze, and everyone was just relaxing, and big word, relaxing. But it was just delightful. I remember going there as a child. So they've been going on for many years. So 3 more. The last one is always the patriotic theme, which is wonderful. Now, Diane, also the movies in the park are very popular with families, free entertainment. So tell us where to get that information and what it is.
Mayor Hall, Councilmember Sullivan. Yes, on our website, we have all of those posted, and on KGov, during the council before the council meetings, after the council meetings, KGov shows them as well. So the first movie is this Friday night, and it will be located at the Park at Riverwalk, Bright House Networks Amphitheater. That's always a fun place for families to come. And then from then on, we have them throughout the city in every council member ward. So we hope you can come out and look at the schedule, and if you can make it in your ward, that'd be great. And they start at dusk, but right before the movie starts, we do have representatives from the Bakersfield Police Department that come out and talk about safe kids and keeping kids safe. They talk a little bit about Danger Stranger. They talk about being safe during storms. They talk about just being safe all the time.
Oh, wonderful, Diane. A total of how many movies?
We have 8 movies.
I see.
So.
Okay, are they always on Friday?
They're always on Friday, so every Friday until August 5th, but we do not have it on July 4th.
I see.
that
So
weekend.
starting this
July 4th.
Friday,
Yes.
starting this Friday, then for the next.
That's correct. It's in our brochures, it's in our website.
Wonderful.
It's on KGov. We put it in the paper every week as well, and we try to get the word out there as much as we can.
Yeah, I attend as many as possible, and
Thank you.
just again, very relaxing, and it's just wonderful to see all the families that are there. So thank you, Diane, for that information. Thank you, Mayor.
I want to inform the council that on for the August 17th meeting, I'll be traveling out of state on business, so I won't be available on that day. If there's no further business, we stand adjourned.
The 3:30 p.m. meeting of the Bakersfield City Council is now in session.
It is my pleasure to call to order the City Council meeting of June the 8th, 2016, and ask the city clerk to please call the roll.
Mayor Hall,
Here.
Vice Mayor Hanson.
Here.
Councilmember Rivera, Councilmember Maxwell.
Here.
Councilmember Weir, Councilmember Smith,
I'm here.
Councilmember Sullivan, Councilmember Parlier.
Here.
Mayor, I'd like to announce that staff has requested that the workshop items 5A and B be moved forward this evening to be heard before the closed session.
In order to comply with the Brown Act, we will now receive public statements. We ask that you limit your comments to the workshops and closed session items only at this time. All statements are given a 3-minute time limit, 15 minutes per subject. Madam Clerk, are there any public statements?
There are no public statements.
Next item, please.
Under Workshops, item 5A, status report regarding preparation of the pavement management system.
Mr. Fiddler, please.
Good afternoon, Honorable Mayor and council members. As you're aware, in May of 2015, staff started the selection process to obtain a consultant to analyze all the city streets and prepare a pavement management system to help track and maintain the condition of all streets within the city's jurisdiction. On August 12, 2015, staff provided a presentation to council on the proposed pavement management system and recommended approval of a design consultant contract to NCE. Since that time, NCE has analyzed all city streets and developed a database and a pavement management system. I would like to introduce Margot Yap, Vice President with NCE, who will be providing a presentation of the new pavement management system.
Good evening. Please identify yourself and proceed.
Thank you. My name is Margot Yap. I'm Vice President for NCE, and we were the firm that was selected to assist the city with the implementation of the pavement management system. So we have a short presentation to kind of give you an update on where we are with the project. We're almost at the end. And see if that gets pulled up. Okay, great, thank you. So what I'd like to do is start out with a little bit of background. Next slide, please. And to give everyone a little bit of a refresher in case you don't already know, what is a pavement management system? And there are many academic definitions for it, but I like to think of this as a tool to help us answer some very critical questions. And the 4 questions that you see in front of you in the presentation are basically boils everything down. What do we own in the street network? How many miles? How much area do we have? And then, very importantly, is it good? Is it bad? What condition is it in? And then for the public works staff, it's very important to know what the repairs are needed, when they're needed, where they're needed. And probably the last part, I think, is very important from on the planning point of view is, what are the funds that are needed to maintain the street network or to improve it? So as part of this project, we went through a software selection process, and we, with city staff, and we ended up with the Street Saver software. Next slide. And back in late summer, we went out and we looked at all the city network, and I have some interesting statistics I wanted to share with you. And the first thing I wanted to do was give you a feel for how big your street network really is. This is an enormous network. We have over 1,200 centerline miles. When we look at all the travel lanes, it's almost 3,000 travel lanes. But probably the most important part, click please, Louis, the value of this network. And I want us to think of this as, we often take roads for granted, but it's a very important public asset. And I usually make the statement that, from the time we wake up in the morning and I open my front door, whether I'm going to work, whether I take my children to school, whether we go bike to work, go to the bus stop, go buy groceries, we are going to be on a locally owned public facility. And that facility has a value. And when we look at all the streets that the Bakersfield owns, we add up what the replacement cost is, it's easily over $1 billion. And this is a huge number. And I want us to spend a couple seconds on this. I think of this number as if we had a catastrophe, if we have a gigantic earthquake, if we had to rebuild the entire street network from scratch, it would cost us about $1 billion. And that's gigantic. So with that, when we look at the size of the network, next slide, please. And I laid it out end on end for every single lane mile. We would almost take us all the way to Boston, and this is huge. And I think sometimes when we travel around the streets, we get used to the roads that we take to work or to school, to the groceries, and then we get on the freeway, and that's about it. So we actually really travel on a very small subset. But if we did drive every single lane, it's huge. And so this is, again, just to give you a feel for the size of that network. Once we had the network identified in terms of how many miles and how many lanes, what it was made of, we wanted to answer the next question. Is it good or is it bad? And to do that, we look at something called pavement distresses. Here are some examples of the types of distresses we look for. Go ahead and click, Louis. We use something called the ASTM protocols. These are nationally accepted protocols. In fact, the protocols are used internationally as well. And they have very clear definitions of what an alligator crack is, or raveling or rutting. And so we take this information and then we calculate something called the pavement condition index. Next slide. And I jumped ahead of myself. The way we collected the data was we use a vehicle very similar to this one. It's mounted with a laser rut bar with computers inside, and based on the GIS map that indicates where we are at any one time. So those distresses that are recorded on the computer, and then the data is taken back into the office, and then we process it and do the calculations. And with the calculations, we then come up with the next slide, which is a scale of 0 to 100. And this is a very common scale. You can see that 0 would be a failed road, and 100 would be good or very good condition. And I have a couple of pictures of what those road conditions look like. And the city's average for the network is at 69, which is kind of just a smidgen below the good boundary. So some thoughts here is I'm often asked, what's a good number to be at? And I usually say this is a policy question. I like to use the analogy of my daughter. She's 12 years old. She's in 6th grade. And if she were to come home and tell me that she got a 69 on her math test, one parent, myself, I might say, you know what? That's not bad. I was never very good in math. That's better than what I did. But another parent might say, that's not going to be good enough. You need to work a little bit harder if you want to get into college. So when I say that this is really a policy question, it's up to you to tell me what is the goal to be. What I can tell you as an engineer is whatever the goal you select, I can give you the financial ramifications of what that goal is. Next slide. So a 69 looks sort of like this. You can tell that it's not bad. It's smooth, it's drivable. There are some cracks in there right now, and those cracks to me as an engineer indicate that there's going to be some failures pretty soon. But overall, it's pretty smooth and it's pretty good condition. So what's the big deal? Well, let's take a look at all these roads as over time. When we have a newly constructed road, this one has a PCI of more than 90. You can see, this was what we all aspire to. We wish all the roads could look like this. And over time, if we don't do anything to it, next slide, within about 5-8 years or so, you can see these cracks start to develop. Now, in this particular situation, you see those lines on the road, it's been sealed. And the city has a pretty active crack sealing crew, so that's good news. But if we didn't do anything and we let it keep going, then we see this pattern of cracks start developing. There's almost, what we call it alligator cracking because it looks like the skin of an alligator. This, to me, is a symptom of structural failure. In other words, the cracks have gone all the way down to the subgrade. We're seeing fines pumping up. And really what you need to know is that the repair is now going to be fairly expensive. Next slide. And if we don't do anything, these cracks begin to pervade throughout the rest of the surface. And finally, keep going, it may look like this. And this particular road, by the way, has been paved in the city. We were actually very fortunate to kind of capture it before it got constructed. But at this point, we would require reconstruction. So the cost, next slide. This slide just gives you a quick overview of the overall network condition. And again, green roads being good, red roads are being the very poor. And we can see that you've got a good sprinkling of green. A lot of them tend to be on the outskirts, which is where the newer subdivisions are. And then sort of in the older parts of town, you have more yellow and orange and red streets. And if we broke it down by the arterials, you can see that most of your arterials are in pretty good shape. There are definitely some arterials that are in the very poor condition. And if we looked at the collectors, we actually see a little bit more red and yellow and orange segments for the collectors. And then finally for the residentials, by and large, they are in reasonably good shape with just a little bit of reds and a sprinkling of yellows. So I like to tease the number, the average of 69, into a little bit more detailed data. 69 is a fairly insensitive number. When I look at the breakdown of the network, I can tell you you've got some really good news. More than half the roads in the city are in actually very good to good condition, about 56%. But the not so good news is that a quarter of it is in poor or very poor. And I think those are the streets that are sort of the red flag that city staff is aware of and that we want to keep our eyes on them without losing track of the fact that, that there's still a lot of good roads in town. When we look at the condition of them by categories, we find out that your residential roads are actually in the best condition, with the arterials and collectors in the 60s. And the collectors actually tend to be about a little bit lower, the lowest of all three categories. So that indicates for us that funding probably some attention needs to be paid on arterials and collectors. These are the roads with high volumes. They're also eligible for RSTP or the federal and state money, which the city is already getting, but we also know that there may be funding limitations. So again, just another bit of an observation for us to kind of track. We also wanted to measure Bakersfield against, well, some cities that have about the same size network. And you can see the good news is that Bakersfield is in the upper third. We've got Long Beach, which is a little bit bigger than Bakersfield. It's very close to where we are. If you look at Oakland, for instance, it's significantly lower than where Bakersfield is. And the statewide average for 2016 is 65. So clearly, Bakersfield is a few points above that statewide average. That's really good news. The part I wanted to share with you, though, is that the ramifications, the financial ramifications. It costs money to repair roads. And we have two options. I like to use analogies. So I have a Toyota. It's about 10 years old. I've got maybe 150,000 miles on it. And I have two choices. I can continue every 5,000 miles to take care of my car and get an oil change, and hopefully it'll last another 100,000 miles. Or I can choose to not do anything, not do any maintenance, drive it to the ground, and go out and buy a new car. Intuitively, I think we know that the most cost-effective way is to maintain what we have and keep it going for as long as we can instead of going out and buying a new car. So the same thing with pavements. If you look at the green part of this chart, the sealants, for instance, that it costs to maintain it is very, very inexpensive. It's 25 cents a square yard. And that can hold it together for another 3, 4, 5 years. If we waited till it failed and then had to reconstruct it, it'd be $44. And on some of the arterials, it's upwards of $50 a square yard, significantly more money to repair. So what I want to leave you with is the message perhaps that if we have good roads, it doesn't cost very much to maintain and preserve those good roads. It's a very small portion of our overall budget, and we should try and do that as much as we can, recognizing, of course, that we do have some bad roads in town, and we need to chip away at that. But if we were not do anything on the good roads and only fix the worst roads in town, what we'll end up with is a bigger hole, because all our money gets sunk into replacing roads and not preserving roads. And in the long term, financially, that is a philosophy or a strategy that we want to avoid. Okay, next slide. So given that we do have money and what are the repairs, I think the staff has been very aggressive with employing a variety of technologies. Here's one of the typical treatments. This is a project, we call it a mill and fill. You mill off the existing surface, maybe a couple of inches, and then you replace it with new asphalt, and you get a brand new surface out of it. It'll last typically another 20 years if it's done on the right candidate. Next slide. There are also some blade seals on some of the lower volume roads that are done, not as maybe it's expensive as the mill and fill, but definitely a good option to use for some of your lower volume roads. Next slide. And then finally, if you did have roads that were really, really bad and you had to reconstruct it, we essentially have to rip it up, pulverize it, recycle it, put it back, and build it up from the bottom up. And that's significantly more expensive. And then finally, what we call the maintenance grind and pave. These are roads where we may need reconstruction, but we try to pull them together and hold them for a short time. And so we do some grind and pave, and they may last 5, 10, 8 years before we need to do some reconstruction. So finally, after we got a sense of how many miles of roads you have and how much it costs, we ran some scenarios with the staff's help, and the existing budget that the staff has for paving is about $19 million, $19.2 million to be exact. And with that annual funding level, we're able to maintain the current conditions at around 69 or 71. And it will fluctuate a little bit, high 60s, low 70s. And if we were to increase it, and this is another scenario that we looked at, if we were try to reach 75 or so, we would want to increase our budget by about 2.3 million, which brings us to 21.5. And so with that, I think that's it for questions. Oh, okay, good. I forgot about, that's some conclusions. So the good news part, the condition of the roads, you have more than half that's in good condition. You're in the top third of some of the California cities we've looked at. And your residential roads are in good shape. Hopefully your residents appreciate that. The arterials and collectors not so good, but you do get a lot of truck traffic. It's, I think, understandable. We do think that the collectors need some additional attention, and in discussions with staff, I think that's one of the lessons that could be moved forward with. The other part, of course, is that we now have a fairly standard way of analyzing and rating the conditions, so we can take this and use it as a benchmark. It is important, I think, that we continue to monitor improvements, though, to the road network. We went through a training session today where a couple of folks in the Public Works Directory are going to be tasked with entering the maintenance data to update that database. And then, obviously, I would strongly encourage staff to continue looking at other ways of pursuing funding, whether it's block grants or additional federal dollars through the RSTP program. I think every penny will help. There are a couple of funding opportunities that are being discussed at the legislature as well as the regional level, and I think these are questions that Nick would want to address. In terms of a summary, then I think let's not forget with the $1 billion investment that we have, we ought to try and maintain that. I think it's our responsibility as taxpayers and also as city stewards for the network. I do feel that the tool that we have implemented will help staff be able to make some good policy as well as strategic decisions on what to do in the future. And the current funding level, I think, is pretty good. We're able to maintain it, but the city's continuing to grow, so we need to keep that in mind as well. So thank you.
Councilmember Maxwell, please.
Thank you, Mayor Hall. Thank you for the presentation, very informative. Mr. Fiddler, as far as the grind and pave, what percentage of our roads do we grind and pave as opposed to actually going down and completely starting over, as was pointed out, pulverizing and reconstructing?
We use several, Councilmember Maxwell, we use several techniques. Our city crews are involved with all three techniques, whether it's a grind and pave, a complete reconstruct, or just a pave, mill and grind. So it varies really depending on the type of street. Our crews typically will do a pulverization of local streets. If it gets into an arterial roadway or collector roadway, those streets we typically contract out, and we're using RSTP funds to do those projects. So the other project that wasn't mentioned is a full depth reconstruct. Okay. Where we go and actually take out anywhere between 8 inches and 12 inches of structural section, and we put a whole asphalt section in. And then there's a last option is a just drew a blank.
The blade, you talking about the blades? The blading or the?
We reutilize the same materials.
Oh, the cold-in-place recycling?
Cold-in-place recycling, thank you.
Okay.
Full depth reclamation, sorry.
I think that's the one that was mentioned.
Yeah.
So. Now, you drove all of the streets of Bakersfield?
Yes, we did.
Okay. As you drove those, did you get a list of what our worst streets are?
Yes, we do have that list.
I'd be interested in seeing it, because I know that for the Ward Ward 2, the 21st, right around Oak Street is really, really bad. The 8th Street between 23rd and 24th. And then the other day, I happened to be going down Elm Street on the west side of Jastrow Park, and I couldn't believe how bad a shape that one was in. So if we've got that priority and that's the way that it's going, I think we're achieving exactly what we need. So I thank you very much.
Councilmember Sullivan, please.
Thank you. Very interesting. Thank you. Thank you. Very well done also. You know, it's interesting how you showed a picture of the device that evaluates the conditions of the streets. And it just is an example of how, you know, just technology and how you're able to keep track of the different levels but also the information that our streets are in the top third of the condition, the cities of California. You know?
Yeah, that's top third of the comparable size.
Yes, oh, of the comparable sizes. Yeah, that's maybe even better. But, you know, I always, when I get a call of a pothole or a damaged street, I appreciate that. I thank the person calling me for that information. But at the same time, now we're able to go on and expand a little bit and help them to understand that even though they perhaps travel a street that needs to be repaired, it is on the list. And really, I've realized the last couple of years that every time I call in a street that is considered to be in one of the worst conditions, it's always on the list. That's the answer I get, and that's true. It is on the list. And so it's helpful to be able to explain to our constituents that, you know, the detailed system that we have and every street is evaluated, but that overall we are in the top third. So thank you. I will remember that. That's very helpful. Thanks.
Councilmember Smith, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I kind of had the same comment that it was good news that we were in the top third of the comparable cities. How often do you recommend that we go back out with the device and run through the streets?
So the industry standard is for your higher volume roads, your arterials and collectors, they ought to be looked at once every couple of years. For your residential streets, because the volumes are much smaller, they don't deteriorate as quickly, most agencies will look at them once every 4 or 5 years.
Great. And the maps that you presented in this PowerPoint actually showed all of the streets and their conditions, correct? So if we
Yes.
wanted, we could look at those maps and
Yes.
see what's what. Thank you very much.
Councilmember Parlier, please.
Thank you, Mayor. You know, I think this is fantastic, using this technology to, you know, prioritize our streets. I noticed 2 of the slides that were presented were from the 7th Ward, and they were, in fact, the one with the worst alligator back of all the photos was just recently paved, and I want to thank Public Works for that. Offhand, I was just trying to find it, but offhand, do you know the approximate square miles? It was Long Beach that we're kind of tied with, correct? You said?
Yeah, I think Long Beach is a little bit, it's a bigger network, but I think you were, on the PCIs, you were very close. I think it was 70 or something like that.
It's 70, but as far as the square miles of that city?
Oh, square miles of the city, I couldn't tell you.
Because I think as far as square miles, I think we're a larger city, so we're doing more. You know, it's got us some population, but as far as land mass, you know, I think that's pretty good. We're tied with them, but yet they're a smaller city geographically.
Yeah, I'm looking at it. Long Beach is about 808 miles, and you've got about 1,200, so it's about 2/3 the size of Bakersfield.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much.
Okay, Mr. Fiddler, do you have any additional comments on this item?
That completes our presentation.
Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, please call the next item.
Item 5B is update on state water conservation regulations. Staff recommends the City Council adopt a new water conservation target and opening of spray parks under limited operational hours. The City Clerk's office has received 1 phone call in support of reopening the spray parks from Katrina Besich.
Mr. Chianello, please.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor and members of the council. I'm here with Jason Metters, the Water Resources Director, and also Diane Hoover, the Recreation and Parks Director. And together we're going to give a report on the new water conservation rules that have recently been adopted by the state of California. And then we'll go into a little discussion on spray parks as well. So on May 18th, the state had adopted some amended water conservation regulations. We're going to be talking today on why were the regulations amended, what were some of those major changes, and how do they affect us? How do they affect other water suppliers locally? We'll talk about the city's proposed water conservation target, the current one that we're under, and also a proposed water conservation target. Give an update on spray parks, and then a summary with some staff recommendations. So, why were the state water conservation regulations amended? According to the state, on May 18th, they have adopted some amended regulations because of improved water supply and conditions, and also fairly good conservation efforts of water users throughout California. We know that we didn't have a large El Nino like everyone predicted, but some states, some parts of the state did get fair amounts of snow and precipitation, and overall the conditions have improved. Overall, the statewide water conservation effort met its goal with nearly 1.3 million acre-feet of water conserved from June of 2015 through March of 2016. The state saved an impressive amount of water during the worst of the drought months. Consequently, these unprecedented mandatory state-driven conservation standards that were in place over the last 10 months will transition, according to the state, to conservation standards based on supply reliability considerations at the local level. And that's really the big change of what's going on here, is for us locally to look at our supply and demands and create, using the state's methodology to create a new conservation target. However, conservation standards are still needed in case this winter is a short reprieve and the drought continues for a longer period of time. The amended emergency regulations recognize that urban water suppliers are in a better position to plan for and accommodate local drought impacts to their water supply, following our experiences conserving upwards of 24% of their water use over the past 10 months. And just as a note, Bakersfield in our domestic service area, as of May of 2016, our cumulative savings was 26.1% of what we used previously. So how does this affect our current water conservation efforts and watering restrictions locally? Well, most restrictions will remain in place and will still be enforceable. City Ordinance number 4804, which was adopted by Council on April 22nd, 2015, remains in place, and it established water use regulations prohibiting washing down sidewalks and driveways, using hoses with no shutoff nozzles to wash cars, water use and decorative water features that do not recirculate water, irrigating 48 hours following a measurable rainfall event, irrigating ornamental turf on public streets, and establishing water days for even and odd watering, and that includes no watering on Mondays. Then following that, there was a city ordinance adopted 4830 on October 14th, 2015, and that allowed for us to write administrative citations for people who are wasting water and not really following any kind of guidance that we may give them to stop wasting water. So we have those two ordinances that for now remain in place. So what does change? If those remain in place, what does change locally under the recently amended state water conservation regulations? The amended drought emergency water conservation regulations allow suppliers to define an individualized conservation standard on their specific water supply and demand conditions. So each water supplier is required to evaluate its supply portfolio and self-certify the accuracy of its information while also providing the underlying information and assumptions. The State Water Board would assign each supplier a mandatory conservation standard equal to the percentage deficiency the supplier identifies in its calculations and assumptions, and we must complete this by June 22nd. So what methodology has the state come out with under their amended regulations? First, we look at the supply. The supply projection for the next 3 years would be based on our current supply conditions, plus an assumed 3-year hydrology mirroring the 2012-13, 14, and 14 and 15 water years. So the supplies that we were living under over the last 3 years will be carried forward to the next future 3 years. What about demand? The water demands is equal to the average amount used in the 2013 and 14 timeframe. The state thought that was reasonable. We took the average of those 2 years for demand. The state says why 2013 and 14? They say because we were in a drought at that time, but also during that time we did not have mandatory conservation targets yet that were in place. And so it seems like it's a reasonable conservative demand to use in our calculations where people are aware that there's a drought, but at the same time we're not being mandated to reach a certain conservation target. So then the supply and demands are analyzed, and any shortage after the 3rd dry year would require a conservation standard equal to the amount of that shortage. The suppliers would self-certify accuracy of their conclusions and provide their analysis and supporting data by June 22nd. The State Water Board would post information provided by the suppliers on its website and assign each supplier as a mandatory conservation standard reductions equal to the supplier's projected percentage deficiency in supply at the end of the 3rd year. The Water Resources Department, with the help of Jason and others, we've gone through our analysis. We've looked at our supplies and what we did with our supplies over the last 3 years and our demands. We've also taken a look at some unique things that we have here in Bakersfield, such as storage in Isabella, and the fact that we are storing a fair amount of water up there now. We have more up there now than we did over the last 4 years. So we use that as a source of supply. And when we calculate this, we come up with a amount approximately to 9% would be our proposed conservation target. And talking to other local water suppliers, they are in the middle of doing their calculations as well. I don't have any final numbers from any of them, so I can't report that. The state website where we upload these calculations and information is not active today. It was offline yesterday. So we will be shortly uploading this information, and we expect the state website to calculate a percentage for us, but we don't expect it to be any different than what we've done by hand, which would be about a 9% conservation target. Just to transition a little bit, then we could go back and answer questions later, but from that into spray parks and splash pads, and I'm transitioning into this because then Diane Hoover will take over for the rest of the presentation. But for the spray parks, the usage under the restricted hours that are being proposed for this summer equates to all spray parks of about 85 acre-feet. We've taken a look at evaporation when the spray parks are being used because they're being proposed to be used 4 hours a day. So unlike, let's say, a normal body of water that could be subject, like in a reservoir or a normal body of water that could be subject to evaporation 24 hours a day, we only have water coming out of these spray parks for 4 hours a day. So we did some conservative evaporation calculations, and we came up with between 2 or 3% of that 85 acre-feet overall that's being used will probably evaporate. That means about 97 or 98% of the water will go back into the system. And when I say into the system, how do the city's spray parks, where do they drain to? Well, they drain into the city's stormwater sumps and basins. And ultimately, all that water goes back into the groundwater for ultimate recycle and reuse. So that's where the water goes from all of these spray parks. And with that, I'll let Diane Hoover take over and give you some more information on spray parks.
Good afternoon, City Council, Mayor Hall. Yes, the spray parks had to close on the last part of June 2014. So it's been a whole half summer and all last summer that we were not able to open the spray parks. So the spray parks, we checked all of them to see if they were functional, because of vandalism, wear and tear, not being used. And the following spray parks are functional: Beale, Greystone, Jastrow, Jefferson, MLK, Saunders, and Seaman. Now, those 7 spray parks, there are some parts that are not running, but we have ordered the parts to have them operational. So all of those parks could open if you agree, and we could get them open as soon as possible. The other 2 spray parks, Wayside and Plans, had more serious functional problems than the others as far as the controller and the motors and all those things. So that will take a little longer. Sometime in July, we're hoping to get those open. So what are the benefits of the spray parks? They're located in areas with very few private pools. They're used by families with children that have limited ability to stay cool during the heat waves. We have had several calls, probably our clerks say over 100 calls, when are we going to open the spray parks? No staff supervision is needed during the operating hours, only for maintenance. And the water sprays only when somebody activates the control knob. So they push a button on the start and it starts. If everybody leaves, the cycle will end and it will turn off automatically. So what I'm proposing is that we open 4 hours a day, each of those spray parks. And the cost of this would be the cost of the water, about $73,000. And since the spray parks were closed, we offered MLK Park Pool and Jefferson Park Pool for free to all takers. That has created quite a crowd in both of those parks. So our recommendation is if we do open the spray parks, that we do start charging the $1 admission for adults. That's already been approved by City Council to charge that $1. So the North of the River Park District has already opened their spray parks for 4 hours a day, and they have their staggered start times. Some of them are open 1 to 5, and others are open from 3 to 7. And Kern County has opened 2 of their spray parks, and they're outside the city limits, one in Lost Hills and one in Mojave. Those 2 spray parks, they inform me, they take the water into a holding tank, and then they're able to use the water to irrigate those parks. It's a different system than what we have. And I'll take any questions. So my staff recommendation is to open the existing spray parks, 7 of the 9, for 4 hours a day, and I propose 1 to 5 on all of those spray parks. It seems to be the heat of the day and the most use.
Mayor Hall, if I may add that from Mr. Chianello's presentation, if the council is comfortable endorsing the goal of 9% as a conservation target, that would be an appropriate thing to act upon, as well as Ms. Hoover's recommendations.
Vice Mayor Hanson, please.
Thank you, Mayor Hall. Diane, thanks. And I think we're going to be doing something at the spray parks later this evening. I have a question for Arthur, though. Did we, in a water board, it's just 9%, is it coming back to the water board first, Alan, and then come back to council?
We're recommending that if you're comfortable, that the council go ahead and vote on it tonight. We do have the submission that's due to the state in a week.
Yeah, June 22nd is, the submission is due for the water conservation target, and that would occur before the next water board meeting.
Okay, well, that's fine with me, obviously. Good report, Arthur, thank you. That's all I have.
Councilmember Smith, please.
Thank you, Mayor. As I understand it, you're looking for a motion on the spray parks and the 9% reduction. Thank you. So I will make that motion for the 9% and to open the spray parks. I think they're a great amenity for the city, and we should do what we can. I would ask, on the 9%, is that just our jurisdiction, or is that the whole city of Bakersfield, including the Cal Water and Bond Water and everybody else?
It's just for the, our jurisdiction, the city's domestic service area. Each supplier in their jurisdiction is responsible for coming up with their own number. So we expect numbers on the order of the magnitude to be approximately the same, but it's really, I don't really know. I haven't gotten a final answer from some of them yet. So this 9% is just for the city of Bakersfield's domestic service area.
So on our domestic service area, you mentioned Isabella. A lot of that water goes to the treatment plants and then doesn't go to our service area? It goes to, we sell it to Cal Water?
Right, and we've accounted for that. The water and storage goes to two treatment plants owned by Cal Water, one in the northeast, which serves 100% of their area, and then one in the northwest, which serves 50% in their service area and 50% in our service area. So when we took a look at the input into the reservoir and the outputs, we took into account that that water would be going to treatment plants that could be outside of our domestic system.
So, and also state water supplies are up, and that goes to the water agency treatment plant. Does that count also?
Yeah, we've had to take a look at that as well. And so state water this year, it's the highest it's been for several years, is at 60%. So we're enjoying that as a supply now. And then in the future, we would have to model state supplies that were similar to what we experienced in our system over the last 3 years. And so any shortfall in a state water supply can be made up by the additional storage that we're enjoying right now, and or some sort of critical dry year agreement that we could enter into with ID4 if required. So we have a couple of backstops for a state supply treated water coming into our domestic system.
So the 9% calculation that's not just a conservation number, that's supply and demand balance, or?
It's a supply and demand balance going over that supply and demand over a 3-year period. And when we looked at near the end of the 3-year period, with a conservative assumption that we wanted to retain some water in storage, we came up with approximately 9%, yes.
So what we did last year, the 26%, that was strictly a demand number, right?
The cumulative water conservation, that was a reduction in demand. That is correct.
Okay. Great, thank you. And again, I'll make the motion.
Councilmember Sullivan, please.
Thank you. Diane, I love this picture. That just shows how, just how family friendly. And what park does this happen to be? Do you know?
This one looks like Saunders.
Okay, well, they're all just delightful. You mentioned that then the pools will be going back to a charge, and you mentioned $1 for adults. How much for children?
Children would be free.
I see. Is that the way it was before we?
Well, Councilmember Sullivan, through Mayor Hall, we charged $1 per person previous. What we found was that many people were turned away because they did not have that $1. So the children are taking lessons for $5 because of our grants that we will be able to supply them. And then to allow them to actually practice their skills in the afternoon after their swim lessons is a great benefit to them.
That's a very nice service by the city. I think it's very, very fair and wonderful that we're willing and able to do that, Diane. That's great. Okay, you mentioned that by what time of the year will 7 of the 9 be able to open?
All 7 of them that I proposed that are operational now
I see.
can open as soon as this weekend if the city council agrees.
I see.
And my proposed hours would be from 1 o'clock till 5 o'clock every day.
Okay, how are we going to, how are we going to promote that?
We would send a press release first thing tomorrow, and we've got press here
I
today,
see.
and I'm sure they're going to get it out, and we'll get it out very, very quickly.
Great, and also later on, when we do vote, you'll be able to talk about it again?
Yes, I
Tell
would.
the hours, that's wonderful. Okay, the other 2, we're going to start, but we do intend to open those also, correct?
Yes, we are working with the manufacturer now and trying to get the parts that we definitely need. They are a little bit more serious and a little bit more expensive, so we're working with them now to find out exactly how much it's going to cost and when we can get that.
Okay, my last question, the holding tanks that you mentioned that the county has set up, was that the question? I missed what Bob asked and the answer that was given. I think that's something different, right?
Yeah, Councilmember Sullivan, I'm not fully understanding how that works with the county, but those 2 areas are outside the city, and they are able to hold the water that is used over the spray at the spray park and put it in a holding tank, and then later that night use it to irrigate the park.
I see, that sounds like a pretty good deal, maybe we can later look into that and get more information, and maybe it wouldn't be, then it could be evaluated if that was something that would be to our benefit. Okay, well, great, I'm certainly ready to support that, so thank you, Diane.
Vice Mayor Hanson, please.
Just a quick question, Mayor. Thank you. Arthur, by doing the 9%, we are required by law, and so if we don't reach that number, we could have a financial expense there. Is that correct?
Right, Honorable Mayor and Vice Mayor Hanson, that is correct. As I understand the rules, even though they were amended by the state, the potential for fines that's currently in the water code has not changed at all. So we will be held to that. We will be held accountable to that for that new standard, and just like we were held accountable to the old standard.
So potentially it could be $10,000 a day.
Worst case scenario, yes, that has not changed in the law.
Okay, but we're comfortable with the 9%?
Yes, we are.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, this concludes this workshop item. Madam Clerk, please call the next item.
We need a vote, please, on the motion.
You have a motion by Councilmember Smith. Please cast your votes.
The motion is approved with Councilmember Rivera absent.
Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Next item, Mayor, is a closed session. Item 3A, conference with legal counsel, potential litigation, 2 matters.
Isn't that wonderful that
Vice-
it's
Correction. Vice Mayor Hanson, please.
Thank you, Mayor Hall.
that it's
Motion
the
to
pool
adjourn
for
to closed
free
session.
children.
We are adjourned to closed session.
Wonderful.